I'm the highest civilization in the universe. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551. Weird person. Li Ming could do this kind of thing by himself, but to be on the safe side, he chose to bring these two level 2 magic beasts with him. If Li Ming really ran into any trouble, these two helpers would be strong. The two beasts followed Li Ming's instructions and entered the auxiliary cabin, while Li Ming returned to the operating table. He stretched out his hand and lightly tapped, and the information of Keenstar had already appeared on the operating table. Keenstar is a semi-technological planet and a multi-element planet. This is mainly because the unification of the Anslo galaxy is different from others. Generally, one or two civilizations dominate the entire galaxy with absolute strength, but the Anslo galaxy is different. The unification of this galaxy adopts a rare peaceful method. The reason why the unification can be formed in this way is entirely because the resources and energy of the areas controlled by the various civilizations in this galaxy are equivalent, and their respective strengths are also similar. There is no need to plunder resources, and the combat effectiveness is basically the same, so there will be a peaceful picture. The purpose of the unification is to jointly deal with external threats, while ensuring their respective interests. The terrain of Keenstar is relatively complex, with mountains, rivers, jungles, and deserts, but these places can be perfectly utilized by advanced civilizations, and even deserts can become a usable resource. At this time, Li Ming's spaceship has been controlled on the ground and arrived at the spaceship parking area. Not far away is a construction area. The entire construction area is huge, and you can't see the end at a glance, but there are 3 huge circular buildings in the construction area that are particularly conspicuous, although the surrounding buildings are already nearly 100-story buildings. But these 3 circular buildings are like 3 eggs in a pile of toothpicks, huge and conspicuous. After the spaceship stopped steadily, a beam of blue light shot down from the bottom, just like a laser shot out from the bottom of the spaceship. The moment the light landed, it directly turned into an alien. It was Li Ming, but Li Ming had changed his appearance at this time. After landing from the parking area, not far away was the construction area. This is a free trade zone, without too many constraints. Li Ming just walked in on his own. Just as Li Ming walked into the building, a light suddenly flashed in the sky, as if a meteor fell from the sky. Bang! A dull thud was heard, like the sound of an iron ball falling into the soil. A few seconds later, the aircraft in the construction area took off quickly and headed straight for the place where the object fell. But the entire construction area was still relatively calm and there was nothing unusual. Li Ming narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of the falling place in the distance, but a large number of buildings blocked it, so Li Ming could not see anything unusual. The original walking steps paused, and Li Ming was still somewhat curious. With a wave of his right hand, a green light shot out, and the flying dragon flew to that place, and Li Ming continued to walk towards the construction area. Li Ming came to this place not to trade anything. If he wanted to cut off the defense system of Keenstar, he had to know the location of the defense system of this planet. There were all kinds of people here, including all kinds of aliens. What Li Ming had to do was to search for relevant content with the ability of wisdom eyes. Walking on the street, there were bustling crowds everywhere, but everything was in Li Ming's wisdom eyes, filtering out all useless information. And after walking for a while, unconsciously, Li Ming had come to the front of the huge circular building. Looking up, the huge building was like a mighty mountain, and the aliens around it were like ants. People kept coming in and out of the door of the building, and the huge flow of people came from here. Looking around, Li Ming was ready to go in and take a look, but just as Li Ming took a step, his figure suddenly stopped, and his head turned to look at the distance. That direction was exactly where the foreign object had just fallen, and in that place Li Ming's flying dragon had found a strange object. At this time, the place where the object fell was already a big pit, and the sand and stones on the ground were splashing everywhere. Many alien soldiers had surrounded this place, and in the middle of this big pit was an oval metal device. It looked like an egg. I don't know what type of metal it was, but it looked very hard. But when Filang arrived here, the metal ball was already broken, as if something had broken out of the shell. Filang looked at it carefully and always felt a little weird. Seeing this, Li Ming collected his mind and then looked up at the sky. Although this spherical metal is only 3 meters long and 2 meters wide, under the defense system of Keenstar, even such a small object will be discovered. But why can this object break through the defense and enter Keenstar? This question flashed through his mind, but Li Ming didn't care. At this time, Li Ming didn't care about this thing. He took a step and entered the circular building. The entrance was not a portal, but just an ordinary white door, but it was completely different after entering. The first floor of this huge building was full of blue-light pillars, like beads on the building, and many people kept going in and out of these pillars, each busy. Li Ming's eyes looked back and forth, and a lot of information kept entering Li Ming's mind. But after filtering, there was nothing valuable. Although the defense system is confidential, in this place with a large flow of people, there must be some confidential personnel coming in and out, and that was the keynote for Li Ming to find the information point. Although this plan is good, it is really not easy to find it. Li Ming walked back and forth in the building through the blue beam of light, trying to find as many places as possible where there were aliens. But after half a day, Li Ming did not find any useful information in the entire building. Walking out of this huge circular building, Li Ming looked lost. After pausing for a second, Li Ming prepared to look for it in another place. But just as Li Ming was about to leave, a robot drove over from the opposite side of Li Ming on the street. This robot is not a complete robot, but a mechanical device in the lower half and an alien in the upper half, which is an auxiliary machine. Such equipment is suitable for aliens with physical disabilities. Using machines instead of legs is convenient, practical and simple. But in Li Ming's eyes, the alien driving the robot is a little abnormal. This alien looks very similar to humans, with facial features, face, and long hair, as if he is a human being. The only difference is that the alien's skin is black. Li Ming's consciousness can sense the other party's energy operation. The lower body of this alien is not disabled. The lower body curled up in the robot is actually the body of a snake. This strange phenomenon made Li Ming fall into deep thought. The energy aura of civilized creatures is unique, which has a lot to do with the conditions for the advancement and growth of civilized creatures. The energy aura of beasts or insects is very different, because non-civilized creatures obtain energy more directly, so the aura is also very different. The black-skinned alien in front of him has both the aura of beasts and the aura of civilized creatures. Not many aliens can detect this, because this person releases the energy aura of civilized creatures as much as possible, and uses it to cover up other auras in his body. But in Li Ming's eyes, these concealments are in vain. All kinds of strange auras made Li Ming very interested in his consciousness. The other party was only a 1.9 level civilization, so Li Ming naturally didn't put it in his eyes. His eyes narrowed slightly, and his wisdom consciousness ability was activated again. The robot walked out and made a continuous clicking sound, and the alien just walked past Li Ming. And now Li Ming, who was standing in the same place, opened his eyes a little wider, and his whole expression became stiff. Just standing there, Li Ming didn't look back, but his extremely ugly face fully showed Li Ming's fear of this guy. Orc civilization, Justina. Li Ming whispered softly and turned to look at the other party. Justina did not seem to notice Li Ming and continued to walk leisurely into the distance, as if she was also looking for something. Li Ming narrowed his eyes and looked at the other party. He moved his feet and followed the other party. At this time, Li Ming seemed to have a great interest in the Orc civilization. This civilization beyond Li Ming's cognition has appeared in Li Ming's consciousness for the second time. Previously, Li Ming obtained some relevant information from Tanjing through his wisdom eyes, and learned that this civilization attacked the local galaxy group, causing heavy losses to the local galaxy group. Now it suddenly appeared in the Virgo galaxy cluster, which gave Li Ming a bit of a bad premonition. Chapter 552 Justina. After Li Ming followed Justina for a distance, his steps suddenly stopped, and his body turned sideways again, changing the direction of his steps and leaving directly. Li Ming had already obtained a lot of information related to the other party's civilization from her consciousness, so there was no need to follow. After obtaining this information, Li Ming did not continue to search for information about the defense system, but found a building that provided living, and stayed there temporarily. After paying a certain amount of energy, Li Ming came to a separate room. This room was located on a high floor, close to the street outside. Although it was a high floor, it was not worth mentioning compared to the huge circular building. Li Ming decided to rest again, and think about whether there was a better way. At the same time, Li Ming's mind was also turning again about the information he had just obtained from Justina. The Orc civilization originated from the Centaurus galaxy cluster. Li Ming had already mastered this basic information, and the updated information obtained from Justina also re-examined this powerful civilization. The Orc civilization is a broad civilization, which is naturally divided into wisdom civilization, power civilization, etc. The inherent strength of this civilization comes from its special physique. As the name suggests, the orcs, the creatures of the entire civilization, are a combination of civilized creatures and non-civilized creatures. The advantage of this civilization is that it has a strong physique and varied abilities. It has the same physique as the orcs, and also has the wisdom of civilized creatures. Although its appearance is a bit strange, its comprehensive strength is very strong. Whether it is single combat or technological civilization, it has surpassed ordinary biological civilization. The advancement of this civilization is also between biological civilization and non-biological civilization. Biological civilization advancement requires materials, while non-biological civilization does not. The Orc civilization only needs low-end materials to complete the advancement. The whole process is to use the advantages of the Orc's physique to absorb energy. After the energy in the body accumulates to a certain extent, it directly breaks through the bottleneck and advances through ordinary materials. Compared with normal biological civilizations, the advancement cost of the orcs is slightly higher for this orc, and this civilized creature is very low, which is the biggest factor in its rapid development and strength. However, this civilization is not without weaknesses. Its biggest disadvantage is the inheritance of civilization. The continuation of life in the Orc civilization is the biggest obstacle to its existence, that is, the problem of reproduction. Civilized creatures belong to the middle level at this level. The most powerful ones are the Orcs and the Zerg. They are the most powerful in terms of reproduction speed and number, and need certain control and suppression. But the Orcs are different. The continuation of this civilization is very dependent on the other two civilizations. In other words, the Orc civilization is a combination of biological civilization and non-biological civilization. Therefore, in all the invasion wars of this civilization, it is not to plunder energy resources, but to find high-quality genes, and then bring them back, and synthesize the two through the unique technology of this civilization to create new life, and ensure the continuation of this civilization. The appearance of this information point made Li Ming think of something. When Li Ming was in the Bunu starfield, he entered a planet full of Zerg. Because the spacecraft was allowed to drive away by Tanjing, Li Ming was trapped on that planet for a long time. On that planet, there are technological equipment that combines Zerg and civilized creatures, and they are derived from the geocentric civilization. According to Li Ming's guess, the geocentric civilization must have conducted a combination experiment of Zerg and civilized creatures on that planet in an attempt to create a new civilization. But in the end, for some unknown reason, the geocentric civilization gave up the planet, but the Zerg on it still existed, and those combined equipment could still operate. It's just that without the control of the advanced civilization, everything will eventually end in failure. The current Orc civilization is similar to those information. In this way, Li Ming has every reason to believe that the current Orc civilization is very likely to be created by the geocentric civilization. And most importantly, it is still a successful and powerful civilization. This information gave Li Ming a deeper understanding of the Orc civilization. Justina's goal here is to find better genes. Once found, the Orc civilization will directly launch an attack to plunder. Thinking of these contents, Li Ming sighed and whispered, if this is the case, then Tanjing must be the object of plunder. After all, she is a guy with aerospace civilization. Thinking of this, Li Ming sighed again and again, but in the end he could only shake his head slightly. Tanjing has her own destiny, and Tanjing has chosen such a path. This is something Li Ming cannot interfere with. The most important thing is that Li Ming does not have the strength now. The figure stood up from the ground and came to the transparent window. He looked outside. Many aircrafts shuttled between the high-rise buildings. The outside was still prosperous. He thought of the kiss that Tanjing gave him when they separated, but he only smiled faintly. At this moment, an alien slowly flew from the sky. The alien was wearing a metal armor of level 1.9. This armor was different from that of ordinary soldiers. Obviously, this person was a senior official on Keenstar. The sudden appearance of this person attracted Li Ming's attention, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the wisdom ability was activated. Through the transparent window in front of him, Li Ming's mental power directly entered his consciousness. Defense system? Li Ming was suddenly startled. The defense system information he had been looking for had already appeared in his mind. Just when Li Ming was about to check it carefully, a black shadow flashed by, and then the alien disappeared directly. Li Ming was shocked, and his eyes turned, and he saw that the black shadow had flown to the distant sky. Li Ming did not dare to hesitate. He broke through the window and the cloak behind him fluttered and turned into a pair of white wings. With a slight flap, Li Ming's body flew out. The speed of the two was too fast, even faster than the surrounding aircraft. At such a high speed, the people and soldiers below did not notice it. Li Ming pushed the speed of the wings to the limit. At this speed, Li Ming was getting closer and closer to the other party. His eyes also saw the other party's true face bit by bit. Justina? Li Ming was shocked. It was Justina who forcibly took the alien away. This half-orc was flying in the air with a long tail. There was also a pair of wings behind him, but they were indeed black. After a few flashes, the two had come to the outskirts of the construction area, and in front of them was a stretch of mountains. Justina had already noticed Li Ming behind her, and frowned slightly after glancing back. Li Ming's flying speed was obviously faster than the other party. As the distance was getting closer, Justina inevitably became a little nervous. She looked around with her eyes, and finally leaned over, and rushed towards the mountain below. Li Ming followed closely behind without any pause. After 2 flashes, Justina's figure paused and stopped on the top of a bare rock, while Li Ming also stopped a few hundred meters away from the other party. Justina looked at Li Ming fiercely, and with a flick of her right hand, she threw the alien on her shoulder to the ground. Although they were both 1.9 level civilizations, it was obvious that Justina's strength was extraordinary. With one move, the alien of the same level had no power to resist. Li Ming thought that only he could do it, but he didn't expect that the half-orc civilization in front of him was so powerful. Justina looked behind Li Ming and saw that there were no pursuers or other flying objects following him. She smiled and said, "Get out of here now. I'll let you go." Li Ming looked him up and down and smiled and said, "It should be you who should get out of here. This is the headquarters of the Ansler Galaxy. The person you arrested is a high-ranking official here. A large number of troops will gather here soon, and you won't be able to escape." Li Ming saw what he was thinking, and said this immediately. Justina was shocked when she heard this. She looked around again. No other aliens or spaceships had arrived, but seeing Li Ming's confident look, it was not ruled out that someone would come soon. With a flash of thought in her mind, Justina suddenly moved and ran straight towards Li Ming. Li Ming was prepared. A golden light flashed on his body, and a golden shield had emerged. A violent muffled sound was heard. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 553, Start Planning. Justina's tail swung heavily on Li Ming's golden shield like a long whip. After a dull sound, the surface of the golden shield made a squeaking sound, and several cracks appeared. This made Li Ming's face change slightly. The opponent's attack was so powerful. Similarly, Justina opened her eyes wide, and was surprised by the defense of Li Ming's golden shield. Without waiting for the opponent to do anything else, Li Ming's right hand flashed with white light, and a light blade shot out from his hand. Justina did not dodge when she saw this. She suddenly stretched out her right hand and grabbed it hard. The black arc in her palm jumped, and the sound of sizzling was incessant. The black arc and the white light collided with each other instantly. Bang! The violent energy shock wave spread out, and the shock wave caused the two people to retreat one after another. It was like an air cannon exploded between the two. Li Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, clenched his right hand again, and a light blade appeared in his hand. Although the shock wave had not ended yet, the wings behind Li Ming suddenly flapped. Instant light slash. Li Ming's figure suddenly appeared behind Justina. Justina was still retreating in the shock wave at this time, and Li Ming's sudden appearance made her face change drastically. He swung his right hand violently, and the light blade in his hand broke through the air. Snap! With a light sound, Justina swung her tail to resist the attack at this critical moment, but the light blade was extremely sharp and had a strong cutting ability. A white light flashed through her eyes. The end of Justina's tail had been cut off by Li Ming. After a successful attack, Li Ming wanted to attack again, but Justina had already flown away to avoid it. A pair of cold eyes looked at Li Ming, with a bit of surprise in the anger. It was obvious that Li Ming's opponent was a bit unusual, and a slight underestimation would bring fatal danger. This guy is so powerful. Justina looked at Li Ming with a serious expression, but after staring at Li Ming for a while, she actually smiled strangely and said, "Among the same level, the only ones who can compete with the orcs are silicon-based life. You are really a pleasant surprise." As she spoke, Justina's right hand turned over, and a metal capsule appeared in her palm. Then she squeezed it hard, and with a muffled sound of bang, a red light flashed, and a huge oval object appeared beside her. When Li Ming saw this oval object, his face changed slightly, and he whispered, "This is..." The oval object in front of him was exactly the one that Li Ming had seen before. When Li Ming had just arrived at Keenstar, a UFO fell from the sky and landed near the construction area. The damaged metal shell that Li Ming's flying dragon saw in the crash zone was exactly the same as the one Justina had just summoned. Seeing this, Li Ming looked as if he had realized something and said to himself, "So that's how it is." Justina blinked slightly, looking at Li Ming as if she was looking at something delicious, with a strange smile on her lips. She gently placed her right hand on the metal sphere and saw the surface of the metal sphere flickering, and Justina's body was also entering it little by little. "It's been too long since I saw such a powerful gene. The harvest of this trip is really not small." As she spoke, Justina's body entered the sphere little by little. Li Ming just looked at the other party without saying a word, and after the other party entered the sphere, a red light flashed, and the oval metal ball flew into the sky with a whoosh and disappeared in a blink of an eye as a point of light. After confirming that the other party had left, Li Ming secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Li Ming was not sure what means this unknown civilization had, and being able to avoid conflict was naturally the last resort. He looked at the sky again, and it was empty. Turning his head to the side, Li Ming looked at the alien on the top of the mountain not far away. With a move, his body shot away. Arriving at the top of the mountain, Li Ming leaned over to look at the alien. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the information he wanted entered his mind little by little. This person's name is Param, and he is the military defense chief of Keenstar. The defense system is naturally under his jurisdiction, and this is exactly the information Li Ming needs. While checking his information, Li Ming also found abnormalities in his body. Param's body has been corroded by the venom, and he is now unconscious, but if he is not treated, he will die soon. Li Ming looked at the other party's eyes and turned slightly. After a little thought, he whispered, "Instead of letting you die in the pain of the venom, it is better to give you something quick." As he spoke, Li Ming's body suddenly flashed with green light, and then the green flame burned on the surface of his body, and then a green shadow hand suddenly reached out and grabbed. Param's soul was instantly pulled out of his body, and the shadow hand slowly retracted into the green flame, and the soul was also absorbed into the shadow bit by bit and disappeared. In this way, the other party's memory and cognition were completely mastered by Li Ming, which saved a lot of trouble. Li Ming slowly stood up and glanced at Param on the ground from the corner of his eyes. Then his body began to twist and deform, and changed into the same appearance as Satch's. After doing all this, Li Ming's right palm made a kai kai sound, and the arc kept jumping in it. He aimed at Parham on the ground and swung his palm, and bang, the arc flashed and hit Parham's body. In just a moment, the whole body was turned into ashes and disappeared completely. After doing all this, Li Ming moved his body and flew towards the construction area. According to the information obtained, Parham came here just to find mutant energy. According to the needs of the defense system, mutant energy can increase the power of attack weapons. Traditional attack weapons are mostly ordinary energy, but the second level civilization has created a new type of light energy weapon combined with other energy, which is more powerful. This is different from pure special energy weapons. Pure special energy weapons are mostly used to break the shield of spacecraft. Their power is still ordinary, and naturally it is not a technology with this combination technology. Li Ming naturally had the mutant energy in his hands, so there was no need to go to the construction area. Now Li Ming was going to the defense system base of Keenstar. While flying, Li Ming kept checking other information of Parham. Filter out the useless information directly, just like filtering water with a sieve. With a swish, a point appeared in Li Ming's mind. Liu Yan. Li Ming's expression tightened, revealing a bit of surprise. But, although Li Ming found a piece of information, he frowned slightly and whispered, Liu Yan is in the hands of Grand Commander Shin, and Shin is already preparing to use Liu Yan to enhance his own energy and become a non-advanced civilization. Whispering like this, Li Ming's face was a little ugly. Liu Yan, as an important item for a 1.9 level civilization, to break through the bottleneck and enter a second level civilization, is only useful for this node. Once it reaches the second level civilization, Liu Yan no longer has the function of advancement. If you want to advance, you need new materials. If you continue to force the use of Liu Guang, then it will become a non-advanced civilization and stay in the secondary civilization forever. Judging from the information in Parham's mind, Shin has this plan. Becoming a non-advanced civilization, Shin's behavior is really a waste of natural resources. Li Ming whispered. But thinking back, it is normal. It is even more difficult for a second level civilization to advance, and the 5 major galaxies are not allowed to advance further. This is all subject to the Earth-Bath organization. Therefore, choosing to add the strength of the second level civilization and giving up the advancement is indeed a good choice. However, Parham's information did not mention whether Shin had used the flow, but Shin had mentioned this matter. He also made a lot of explanations to the civilizations on this matter, and the civilizations also agreed. If the other party has already used it, then Li Ming's trip would be in vain. Thinking in his mind, Li Ming began to ponder again. Then I must check it first. Whispering in his mouth, Li Ming already had an idea, and the energy on his body flashed, speeding up the flight. At this time, Li Ming needs to enter the base of the defense system first. After finishing the work here, Li Ming needs to meet Shin in person to confirm whether Liu Zuan is still there. Chapter 554. Action. He raised his left hand, and a metal device on his arm flashed blue light. The Shadow Insect Army led by Walker was already rushing to Keenstar. The timing is just right. As he spoke, Li Ming's figure slowly stopped. There was a desert below him. Li Ming swept his eyes and locked onto the location of a sand dune. After a slight smile, he said, "This is it." As he spoke, his figure moved and shot downward. This sand dune seemed to be no different from other places in the desert, but under Li Ming's keen eyes, there was a blue barrier device on the surface of this sand dune. Li Ming had Parham's consciousness, so everything was naturally under control. He waved his right hand, and a blue light shot out. A blue light flashed on the surface of the sand dune, and a vortex portal appeared. This vortex portal was formed by a blue light phantom, and Li Ming's body accelerated and disappeared into it in a flash. The light flashed, and when Li Ming appeared again, he was already in a hole underground, with a large number of soldiers walking back and forth, looking very busy. Because of Parham's memory, Li Ming was very familiar with this place. Walking deeper into the hall, the soldiers who saw Li Ming saluted one after another. Li Ming didn't care, and walked straight into the depths. There was a red portal at the top of the hall, which led to the defense system control center. Li Ming was walking by himself, and his figure suddenly stopped, and his eyes looked at the 2 soldiers at the door. Under his wise eyes, an important piece of information had entered his mind, which made Li Ming frown slightly, revealing an unexpected expression. When he came to the portal, Li Ming did not enter immediately, but asked, "Has anyone else come since I left?" One of the soldiers bowed his head and saluted, and replied, "Lord Xin has been here, and is still inside." This answer was exactly what Li Ming saw with his wise eyes. Originally, Li Ming wanted to find Xin, but he didn't expect that the other party would happen to be here. With a move, Li Ming entered the portal. A light flashed, and when Li Ming appeared again, he was already in a circular wide area, like an independent room. The walls of the room were all metal pipes, which led to the distance in all directions. In the middle of the room was a spherical object. This object was white and flashing, like a night pearl. Most importantly, it was a pure energy body, not a physical object. Li Ming only took a quick glance, and realized that this sphere was the brain of the defense system. With this thing, the defense of Keenstar would be greatly guaranteed. At this time, a person was standing in front of the object. It was the commander-in-chief of the Ansler Galaxy, Xin. Li Ming stepped forward and saluted, and said respectfully, "Lord Xin." Xin looked at the energy ball in front of him and whispered, "I came here today because I have something very important to tell you." Li Ming paused after hearing this, but did not say much. Xin then continued, "A few days ago, I received information from the Earth-Bath organization of the Virgo Galaxy Cluster, saying that the Orc civilization of the Centaurus Galaxy Cluster may launch an attack on our galaxy cluster. We must strengthen our defense. If we find any abnormalities, we must report to them in time." Li Ming listened carefully, but did not respond. Xian turned around, glanced at Li Ming, and continued, "Param, when dealing with extraterrestrial civilizations, the defense system is our most important weapon. Even if we can't completely eliminate the enemy outside the door, we can at least greatly weaken the enemy's attack, so, your position is crucial." Li Ming's body tensed up, and he quickly replied, "I understand." "Yeah." Xian nodded with satisfaction. Li Ming's eyes rolled, thinking in his mind, hesitating for a while, and then continued, "Our defense system is the most advanced technology of the second level civilization. It will definitely eliminate all enemies outside the Keen planet. Even if a few enemies enter the planet, with your strength, Lord Xin, you can easily kill them. After all, you are already a non-advanced second level civilization." Hearing this, Xin suddenly paused, expressionless at first, but soon sighed lightly, and said, "The strength of the Orcs is something that even the Earth-Bath organization is afraid of. What's wrong with me reaching a non-second level civilization? What's more, I haven't used the flow to enhance my energy yet." This sentence is exactly the answer Li Ming wanted. Hearing this, the stone in Li Ming's heart finally fell to the ground. In this way, the flow must still be there, and it is very likely that it is on the opponent. Li Ming was thinking about it, and Xin continued, "So it is extremely important to destroy Tizen as much as possible outside the Keen planet." Li Ming smiled lightly and replied, "I understand." Xin nodded again with satisfaction, looked at the energy ball behind him, and turned away. After Xin disappeared from the portal, Li Ming turned around and looked at the energy ball. His mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a hint of a smile. A few days later, in the space of Keenstar, 12 huge monsters slowly approached. These 12 huge objects were the shadow worms. Shadow worms are giant insects in the Zerg that have the ability of time and space and can carry people. The appearance of the insects is like a cicada, but they will not easily spread their wings in the universe. There are a lot of empty spaces in the trunk of their bodies, and that is where other animals hide. The hard trunk shell plays a very effective protective role. In the space inside the shadow worm, Walker stared at a blue light device in his hand, and said coldly with a serious expression, "Attack." As soon as the order was issued, the 12 shadow worms suddenly flashed with a buzz, and disappeared on the spot. At this moment, Li Ming stood alone in the air of a desert, staring at the sky in the distance. And a ball of grey smoke also surrounded Li Ming's body. This smoke was turbid. "He won't notice something and won't come." The turbid one eye whispered as it looked into the distance. Li Ming didn't seem to be worried at all. He looked calm and confident. He said, "No, the current defense system is crucial to Xin. He will come here without hesitation for any reason or excuse. As he was speaking, a small group of aircraft appeared in the sky in the distance. When he saw the aircraft, Li Ming smiled and said, "What should come is finally here." After a few flashes, 4 aircraft had come to Li Ming's side and stopped one after another. The hatch of the aircraft in the front opened and Sheen flew out. When he saw Li Ming, he was angry and unhappy and scolded, "Param, what are you doing here? Didn't you say that an unidentified object was detected approaching Keen Star?" Li Ming smiled slightly, and his body twisted and changed, and turned back into Li Ming's original appearance. "Yes, it was detected, and that person is me," Li Ming replied fiercely, and a golden light flashed on his body, and a powerful energy aura was released. Seeing this, Zine was shocked at first, but then he became angry. He clenched his hands into fists, and his eyes were full of anger. He wanted to tear Li Ming into pieces immediately. "Who are you? You actually..." Zine hadn't finished his words yet. There was a muffled bang in the sky far behind him, and a huge shadow insect appeared in the sky far away. This made Zine look back quickly. At this time, Li Ming said, "That is the headquarters." Zine's surprised expression trembled slightly. He looked back at Li Ming and said, "Zerg, you actually colluded with Zerg?" Li Ming shook his head slightly and replied, "No, not Zerg, but Orcs. I'm the military advisor of the Orcs." Although Zine was angry, he still maintained his calmness and said, "You underestimated me, Zine." As he spoke, Zine suddenly took out an object, raised his hand, and threw it into the sky. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the object suddenly exploded. After flying into the air, a circle of red ripples spread out in a circular shape. At the same time, a red beam of light shot straight into the sky, as if a beam of laser was shot into the house. Li Ming narrowed his eyes, and the red spreading light waves and the beam that shot straight into the sky were all captured by his wisdom eyes. Li Ming's face changed slightly after seeing this. This thing was a signal transmitter, but Li Ming didn't know what kind of enemy this signal would summon. Chapter 555, Execution of Orders. Li Ming glanced at the desert below and immediately issued an order in his mind, "Go." As soon as the voice fell, there was a muffled bang in the desert underground, and the sand broke apart. A black shadow flew out from it and ran towards Zine. As soon as it appeared, Zine was also startled. When he noticed it, the black shadow had already arrived in front of him, and at the same time, a fist hit Zine in the front. Zine was shocked and hurriedly crossed his arms to resist. Snap! Energy ripples spread out, and the powerful force was like a hammer hitting hard, knocking Zine out in an instant. Before Zine could stand firm, a swoosh sound suddenly came from behind him, and 3 long sword-like tails attacked from 3 directions. Zine was shocked, and energy radiated from his body, and a blue shield had already formed. 3 bang, bang, bang sounds were heard, and the 3-color sharp blade tail pierced into the shield, but it only pierced the shield, and did not pierce the shield, nor did it touch Sheen's body. Despite this, such an attack also made Sheen's face change drastically, and he quickly turned back to look. The attack of the 3-color tail was naturally Yuank, and the previous black shadow was Fenifu, all of which were arranged by Li Ming. Seeing this, Li Ming's body moved accordingly, and a white light flashed in his hand. The light blade swooshed in the air a few times, and the 4 aircraft exploded with a boom. Because Li Ming's speed was too fast, the 4 aircraft exploded almost at the same time. But Li Ming did not stop there. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his body shook slightly, and disappeared on the spot. Sheen opened his eyes wide, and was at a loss, but when Sheen reacted, Li Ming's figure was already behind him. Puff! The lightsaber in Li Ming's hand directly pierced through the blue shield, and pierced the opponent's body. Zine opened his eyes unwillingly, gritting his teeth, but the next moment, Li Ming's eyes narrowed, and with a swoosh, swoosh, swoosh sound, the light blade that pierced Zine's body suddenly began to fork like a branch, and suddenly thin rays of light scattered from Zine's body, turning Zine into a light blade hedgehog. After doing this, Li Ming showed a satisfied look, glanced at Yuan and Feifu, and said, "The war has begun. Now is the best time to plunder. How much you can get depends on you." Yuan and Feifu immediately showed a hideous laugh, and flew away quickly. After the 2 beasts flew away, Li Ming's eyes returned to Zine's body in front of him, raised his left hand, and grabbed the void. Green light flashed in the palm of his left hand, and a star bag was taken out of Zin's body, and Li Ming's right hand also sent out, and Zin's body fell from the air to the ground. Looking at the star bag in his left hand, Li Ming's consciousness immediately sensed it, and he smiled slightly, saying to himself, "The second Liu An, finally got it." With a clenched palm, Li Ming put away the star bag. He turned his head and looked at the previous construction area. There was a constant rumbling sound, and the battle had begun. A large number of beastmen jumped from the shadow bugs into the construction area and began to burn, kill and loot like bandits. All this happened in front of Li Ming's eyes. However, Keenstar was not completely without resistance. After the defense system disappeared, a large number of armored soldiers and robots appeared one after another, and various aircraft also entered the battle sequence. On the beastman side, various flying beasts also faced the challenge directly. A fierce battle between the beastmen and the aliens was taking place. You can see aliens being slaughtered at any time, and you can also see beastmen being killed by alien weapons. The main task of the beastmen is still plundering, and any object containing energy is among their looted items. Energy decorations in the building, as well as star bags containing energy bodies. In short, anything with energy attached is being plundered. The scene in front of him is not what Li Ming wants to see, but this kind of thing is also happening in every corner of the universe. The only difference is that the war here was initiated by Li Ming. Li Ming's goal has been achieved, so he naturally does not want to let this war continue. Moreover, Sheen has just released a signal wave, and soon a large number of civilized warships will come to support, and the war at that time will be difficult to end. Li Ming's figure came to the edge of the building area, raised his right hand, and lightly tapped the device on his wrist. Only blue light flashed, and a message had been sent by Li Ming, and Li Ming whispered to the device, "Retreat." While speaking, Li Ming had already turned and flew to another place. The order was issued, and all the filthy shadow insects trembled slightly, and their eyes began to flash like two neon lights, and at the same time, they kept making low humming sounds, like cicadas. The aliens who received the signal were all startled. Whether they were fighting or plundering, these beasts all turned around and quickly evacuated in the direction of the filthy shadow insects. Orders are irresistible in the beast tribe. No matter what they are doing, they will give up directly. Because the beast tribe's consciousness has not yet reached a higher level. Of course, it is not ruled out that there are some special beasts, but most beasts will have a slight increase in consciousness as their levels increase. The order has been issued, and Li Ming flew to the location of his spaceship, but did not board the spaceship immediately. He just stood there and looked into the distance. The original trade area has also fallen into war at this time. A piece of chaos is constantly boiling in the explosion and flames. The original construction area has turned into hell in a short moment. However, after Li Ming issued the order to retreat, everything gradually quieted down. At this time, the huge filthy shadow worm began to slowly fly away from here, and the surviving monsters have basically boarded the filthy shadow worm. Li Ming still stood in front of the spaceship and waited quietly. The filthy shadow worm in the sky had flown away, and Li Ming's eyes were still looking into the distance. He saw a grey figure flashing and coming towards Li Ming. Li Ming smiled lightly under his calm demeanor, showing a satisfied look. The figure flying over was Walker. After Walker arrived, Li Ming walked towards the spaceship this time. A blue light flashed, and Li Ming and Walker entered the spaceship together. Then the spaceship moved slightly and flew away. In the main cabin, Li Ming stood in front of the operating table and asked, "Has it been handled?" Walker came to the operating table gently and said, "The equipment has been handed over to Rai. He will lead the troops back to Sirius according to the guidance of the equipment." Li Ming nodded slightly and said nothing more. "Then Walker said again. Li Ming did not respond immediately. His eyes kept looking at the operating table in front of him. After hesitating for a while, he whispered, "If I want to take what I need from the hands of the second level civilization, then I need the help of the beastmen." As he spoke, Li Ming was already planning something. There is no doubt that in this plunder, Li Ming successfully got the items he wanted. At present, Li Ming's advancement only has one level left. Li Ming is not sure whether this success can be replicated, but Li Ming must find a way to achieve it. Accompanying the shadow worm, Li Ming's spaceship also teleported here little by little, and the target was also the Penelope galaxy. While Li Ming was teleporting, a giant spaceship was slowly flying in the Ancillor galaxy. This spaceship was huge, even a few points larger than the cruise bay. The cruise bay was huge, but it was pieced together bit by the space station. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was an asteroid, but this spaceship and the cruise bay had similarities. The entire spaceship was like a gyroscope, huge. The top and bottom of this spaceship were a combination, with a number of medium-sized spaceships spliced together, like a honeycomb. Once it was deployed, it would be dispersed into a large number of spaceships. In the middle of the spaceship was a huge disk, which was the core of the entire combined spaceship. In the main cabin of the disk, an alien was looking at the operating table with contempt. This person was Nuaya. The blue light flashed on the operating table, and Run Yulong's face had already appeared. "I have locked the target," Run Yulong said first. Nuaya's eyes were cold under her mask. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "Don't attack the shadow worms. I will go to Sirius to talk to Teoti, but Li Ming's spaceship must be destroyed. If possible, kill him directly. This guy must not be allowed to survive." Run Yulong paused and replied, "Let the shadow worms go?" Nuaya nodded slightly and continued, "Now the Orc civilization has not been investigated clearly, and we can't have violent conflicts with the Orcs. I will go to appease Teoti, and you just need to kill Li Ming." Run Yulong sighed slightly, hesitated for a moment, and then replied, "Okay." Chapter 556, Frozen Planet. Li Ming's spaceship was ahead of the shadow worms, leading the shadow worms troops to the Penelope galaxy. At this time, they had already flown away from the star system, where Keen Star was located. Li Ming's spaceship was teleported according to the transmission distance limit of the shadow worms to ensure that it was compatible with the entire team. After all, the function of the spaceship was far greater than that of the shadow worms. With a flash of light, Li Ming's spaceship disappeared first, and the shadow worms behind him also disappeared one by one. When they appeared again, they were already in the more distant starry sky. Li Ming looked at the operating table with a satisfied look on his face. Although it was outside the star system at this time, there was still a dwarf planet on the operating table. This dwarf planet was very small and blue in color. It was a pure ice planet. This dwarf planet also orbited the star system, where Keen Star was located. Seeing this pure ice planet at this time reminded Li Ming of the pure ice planet he had visited before coming to the Virgo galaxy cluster. After just a few more glances, Li Ming prepared for the next teleportation point, but the starry sky not far away suddenly flashed with light, and 3 spaceships suddenly appeared. These 3 spaceships were not teleported here, and it seemed that they had been nearby for a long time. The sudden appearance of the spaceship startled Li Ming, but before he could do anything, 3 high-energy beams suddenly shot out. Li Ming looked at the console and exclaimed, "It's locked." Boom. A violent explosion occurred in the vacuum of the universe, and the shockwave spread out. The fragments of the spaceship continued to fly far away, and among the fragments was a golden object. The golden object was Li Ming's magic shield. At this time, the golden shield was full of cracks. Although Li Ming was not injured, he was also flying far away with the shockwave. Li Ming didn't know what happened, but what he could do at this moment was to escape as much as possible. With the power of the shockwave, Li Ming not only did not mean to stop, but instead transformed the flowing cloud wings to speed up the flight. The direction Li Ming was heading was exactly the pure ice planet. Li Ming approached the planet little by little, and the 3 spaceships in the distance also rushed straight towards him. No matter how fast Li Ming was, he could not compare with the spaceship. In just a blink of an eye, the Dechuan had already arrived in front of Li Ming. Li Ming did not dare to hesitate. The blue light on his body was strong, and powerful energy was rotating around his body. Before the spaceship could attack, Li Ming's body disappeared with a bang. When Li Ming appeared again, he was already in the outer space of the frozen planet, but Li Ming continued to use the teleportation ability without any pause. With the release of powerful blue light energy, Li Ming's body disappeared with a bang. When he reappeared, Li Ming had already entered the frozen planet, and his body fell as fast as a meteor. Li Ming was slightly relieved. However, the spaceship behind him was also pressing up. The spaceship did not use the teleportation ability and flew directly into the planet. After more than 10 seconds, boom. With a loud bang, Li Ming's body was like a fast-flying golden bullet that directly smashed into the ice layer. In an instant, the ice layer within 100 meters was completely cracked, and the entire ice layer turned into broken ice cubes. Because he was eager to escape, Li Ming had no time to control his speed, so he directly hit the ice layer. At the moment, when Li Ming just fell into the ice layer, the 3 spaceships immediately launched intensive attacks, and beams of light shot into the place where Li Ming just fell. Boom boom boom. Violent explosions continued to be heard, and dazzling light energy was constantly released from it. The cracks in the ice layer spread rapidly. Previously, it was only 100 meters, but after a series of bombardments, the cracks in the ice layer had turned into a range of several kilometers. The entire area turned into a big pit, deep and bottomless. Run Yulong in the spaceship stared at the operating table, glanced coldly, and whispered, "It is impossible to survive under this density of precise attacks." He said this with a smug look on his face, and then operated the spaceship to leave. The 3 spaceships gradually moved away, and a large and deep ice cave was left on the planet. The depth of the cave was pitch black and bottomless. It seemed that the entire ice cave led directly to the core of the planet, but it was still surrounded by ice. Deep in the ice cave was a dark land. Li Ming lay on a rock and gasped hard. He looked up at the ice cave, which was all pitch black. Li Ming's entire body was completely wrapped in green beams of light, and blood continued to flow from the broken wounds on his body. Although the green light of the ghost key was already treating it, the serious injuries made Li Ming unable to move for a while. His vague consciousness became more and more blurred, as if he would die at any time. The fire of life had only a candle-like flame left, as if it would go out at any time. This frozen planet was similar to the planets Li Ming encountered in the local galaxy group, but there were also great differences. The similarities were that the core was all rocky and the surface was a thick layer of ice. The difference was that this planet was smaller in size, and there was only a natural vacuum layer between the rock layer and the ice layer in the core. The rocks kept rotating, and the water formed an ice layer on the outside, while the vacuum layer in the middle was the isolation layer between the central rock and the outer ice layer. When Li Ming was attacked, he broke through the ice layer and fell here. In this place, there was rocky land under his feet, and there was an ice layer instead of the sky above his head. Li Ming's remaining consciousness continued to maintain his life, and under the treatment of the green light, the fire of life burned again. Li Ming's injuries were mainly mental. Although the powerful high-energy laser caused some damage to Li Ming's body was strong enough, and there was also the golden light of the magic shield, so Li Ming could accept the physical injuries. But the mental shock was different. The shock wave generated by the explosion of the high-energy weapon would directly impact Li Ming's brain, which was naturally more serious than the physical damage. Fortunately, there was a vacuum layer just below the ice layer, which successfully weakened the power of the shockwave. If it were not for the vacuum layer, Li Ming would really die. Consciousness was restored bit by bit, and life was revived bit by bit. Li Ming's eyes slowly opened, and after taking a deep breath, he whispered, "TMD, almost cold." Speaking of this, Li Ming endured the pain and sat up, looked at the scars on his body, and gradually improved under the treatment of the ghost key. He stood up slowly, looked around, and Li Ming frowned slightly. Li Ming was in the isolation layer. The cold current here was very strong, but what shocked Li Ming the most was that the star core under him was not an ordinary rock. The star core continuously generated a strong traction force. This force was not the traditional gravitational force, but the force that could suppress energy. Li Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, and he had already seen the outline of this force with his wisdom eyes. In the isolation layer, this force was slowly flowing with purple light, like smoke, and ordinary eyes naturally could not see it. What is this force? Li Ming frowned slightly. In Li Ming's cognition, he had never seen this force. It was not energy, but it could relieve his own energy, making the energy in the body fit more perfectly. The feeling was indescribable, but it made people feel more comfortable. Li Ming's eyes kept looking around, and his body, that stood up, began to move around a little bit. Is this the reason for the formation of the ice layer? Li Ming continued to talk to himself. Li Ming continued to walk deeper. In ordinary sight, it was pitch black, but under the eyes of wisdom, a faint light flashed everywhere. It was this power flowing inside. Li Ming couldn't help but indulge in it as he watched. It was not energy, but it could make energy flow more comfortably. This played the role of the star core here. Unconsciously, Li Ming had come to the depths. After finding a place with rich energy, Li Ming leaned over and slowly sat down. The green light flashed, and the ghost key continued to operate on the surface of the body. The speed of wound recovery suddenly accelerated. Li Ming could even clearly sense that the wound was healing. Chapter 557 Purple Crystal Block. This feeling, could it be? Li Ming closed his eyes slightly and said to himself in his heart. His face was full of excitement, and he couldn't help but smile. He said to himself, this feeling is the potential and extreme that Lun Jingzhang mentioned. A feeling that he had never had before flowed through Li Ming's body. The ability of the ghost key was still better than before when the 6 domains were not used to strengthen the star. The perfect combination of a strong body and energy made Li Ming experience an unprecedented feeling. And this feeling reminded Li Ming of the combination that Lun Jingzhang said at the beginning, reaching the extreme to stimulate potential and exert extraordinary power. Under the effect of this power, in less than a moment, Li Ming's physical wounds had completely recovered. With a smile on his face, Li Ming slowly stood up from the ground and said to himself, I didn't expect it to be so easy to understand the meaning of combination. He took a deep breath, looked at his recovered body, and turned to walk out. This is not a place to stay for long. Li Ming returned to the entrance of the ice cave just now. After looking up, his body moved upwards, but before he flew far, Li Ming's body paused and stopped in place. With his brows slightly furrowed, he looked at his hands and then at his feet. That feeling just now is gone. Li Ming said to himself in confusion. Just as Li Ming said, as soon as he flew away from the star core below, the feeling of combined power disappeared from his body. Originally, Li Ming thought that he had mastered this ability, but he didn't expect it to be a flash in the pan. But after thinking about it for a while, Li Ming understood. With a move, he flew down again, back to the rock surface of the star core. After staying there for a short time, Li Ming's eyes immediately widened a little, and he said to himself, that feeling is back again. Looking around with his wise eyes, Li Ming nodded suddenly and said, with the help of the power of this star core, you can reach that state instantly. Once you get rid of this power, it will disappear immediately. As he spoke, Li Ming's eyes moved slightly, and he began to think. According to what Lan Jingzhang said at the beginning, the comprehension of this ability depends entirely on one's own practice and understanding, but Li Ming has never stopped researching it, but for so long, Li Ming has not made any progress. The power of the star core is like a stimulant, which instantly made Li Ming reach that level. However, once he was separated from this power, he would not be able to do it. Li Ming raised his right hand and touched his chin and fell into deep thought. After thinking for a while, Li Ming's eyes sank slightly, and he looked at the star core under his feet. He looked at it with his eyes and muttered, could it be? Is there something in this star core rock? According to Li Ming's cognition, ordinary rocks cannot release this kind of power. Now this place is full of this strange power, which means that there must be some deception. Thinking of this, Li Ming's eyes narrowed, leaned over and slapped hard, and his palm slapped firmly on the ground. The earth trembled slightly, and a green light shot out from Li Ming's palm, spreading directly into the depths of the rock. Then the blue light flashed, and the blue energy began to completely cover the entire area. Li Ming used 2 abilities. One was Qinglong, using the penetrating ability of Qinglong's consciousness to quickly check whether there were any special items in the depths of the rock, and the other was one of Wukong's abilities, energy conversion. Convert its own energy into elemental energy of rock properties in order to manipulate the rock. The light of energy covered a large area, and the faint light flickered little by little on the surface of the rock, while the azure dragon was already quickly shuttling underground. After a moment, Li Ming's eyes suddenly widened a little, his mouth slightly opened, and he said to himself, sure enough. In the depths of the star core, Li Ming's flying dragon really found a strange substance. There were many purple crystal blocks in the Earth's crust. The closer to the crystal block, the stronger the power. Li Ming could be sure that it was the crystal block that emitted this power. Of course, the purple crystal block was only a larger substance. There were also many weak purple particles in the Earth's crust. These purple particles were also releasing this power. Although they were not as powerful as the purple crystal blocks, they were also part of this power. Seeing this, Li Ming smiled slightly and whispered, "If these purple crystals are extracted." Thinking about this, Li Ming already had his own plan. Li Ming had not successfully cultivated to the ability of combination for a long time, which made Li Ming doubt his qualifications and talents, but the objects he encountered now could obviously help Li Ming reach that level. It is certainly a good idea to extract these things and keep them on hand for future use. Thinking of this, Li Ming's palm suddenly pressed hard. Buzz! A light sound was heard, and blue energy ripples spread out. Energy was injected into the rock, and the entire crust was under Li Ming's control. There seemed to be nothing abnormal on the surface, but the inside of the crust had begun to operate. The entire crust was like a puzzle, moving the objects containing purple crystals up. In just a moment, pieces of purple crystals appeared on the surface of the rock. Li Ming naturally would not take the trouble to extract those tiny particles, but only extracted those larger crystals. When his right hand left the ground, there were already such crystals all around. With a satisfied smile, Li Ming waved his left hand, and a blue light flashed. All the crystals flew directly into Li Ming's palm and disappeared. Of course, Li Ming only extracted this area, and he would not let go of other places. As soon as his figure moved, Li Ming walked further away. Next, Li Ming began to extract those crystals little by little like a miner, but at the same time as Li Ming extracted the crystals, the ice layer began to change slightly. Cracks began to appear on the ice layer on the outermost planet. These cracks only appeared on the surface of the ice layer at first, but as Li Ming extracted the purple crystals, the cracks in the ice layer began to extend underground. The cracks began to become dense, and cracks began to appear on the ice layer of the entire planet, and the cracks became wider and deeper. After collecting on the surface of the star core for most of the day, Li Ming suddenly stopped, because he had been busy collecting, and did not pay attention to his surroundings. At this time, he stopped and looked up, and his brows frowned. The ice layer above his head kept making a squeaking sound, and at the same time, the distance between the ice layer and the star core under his feet was also pulled closer. This strange phenomenon has attracted Li Ming's attention. His eyes kept looking at the top of his head, with a puzzled look on his face. But after watching for a while, Li Ming continued to extract purple crystals without paying too much attention. According to Li Ming's guess, the distance between the ice layer and the star core is probably related to the undulating terrain on the surface of the star core. But as Li Ming continued to manipulate, this idea immediately disappeared from his mind. The ice layer tens of kilometers thick was actually pressing towards the star core little by little, and the ice layer kept making a squeaking sound, as if it would collapse at any time. If such a thick ice layer collapsed, Li Ming would definitely be buried alive. At this time, Li Ming had extracted a large number of purple crystals. Although there were still many such things in this star core, if he continued, he was afraid that something unexpected would happen. He looked around, sometimes in the distance, sometimes above his head, and whispered, "Could the sudden change in the ice layer be related to my extraction of this thing?" Because nothing unusual happened before Li Ming extracted the purple crystal block, the sudden change at this time just shows that the two seem to have a certain relationship. After some thought, Li Ming took a deep breath and looked at the distance again. Although he still wanted to continue extracting, when he thought of the ice layer that could collapse at any time, Li Ming decided to give up temporarily. After all, he had already mined a lot. Thinking of this, Li Ming turned and walked towards the previous ice cave. Li Ming was not far from the location of the ice cave. He arrived after flying for a while, but the ice cave had already become abnormal at this moment. Ice blocks kept falling from the four walls of the ice cave, as if they would collapse at any time. The speed of the high altitude ice blocks falling was extremely fast, just like hail in the sky, but the volume of the ice blocks was extremely huge. Once hit, the consequences would naturally be unimaginable. Chapter 558, Facing the Invasion. Li Ming looked up and flew upwards. These ice blocks were all within Li Ming's consciousness. It was impossible for them to hit Li Ming. However, when flying upwards, Li Ming also found something unusual. There were cracks all over the frozen walls, and ice blocks kept falling. Seeing this, Li Ming couldn't help but speed up his upward flight. Li Ming knew very well that, although the ice layer had not completely collapsed at this time, due to the imbalance of power, the cracks in the ice layer would continue to intensify, and collapse would be a matter of time. After a few flashes, Li Ming returned to the sky above the ice layer. At this time, the cracks in the entire ice layer were all in Li Ming's eyes. At this time, Li Ming had to sigh that his decision was correct. Looking with his eyes, his right hand slightly turned, and a metal capsule appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and threw it into the air. Bang! The light flashed, and a spaceship had already emerged. Li Ming's figure moved and entered the spaceship. Standing in front of the spaceship's operating table, Li Ming re-imported the space map, looking at it with his eyes, and was already thinking about something. There are already 2 Liahangs. If there is one more, we can enter the second level civilization, but this, he muttered to himself. The blue light on the console was already flashing, and the nebula map had already appeared. Li Ming had been to 2 of the 5 major galaxies, and had obtained Liahangs in both. Now Li Ming was looking for the next target, but this time Li Ming no longer needed to cooperate with the beastman. After a check, Li Ming's eyes quickly locked on one of the major galaxies. Jint Galaxy. He whispered in his mouth, and his eyes kept looking at the information related to it. Jint Galaxy, one of the 5 major galaxies, is headquartered on Serra Star, with Grand Commander Sawyer, the most powerful galaxy among the 5 major galaxies. This galaxy is mainly a power civilization, and its strong combat power makes it have a high status and reputation in the Virgo galaxy cluster. It is precisely because of these factors that the probability of Liahangs existing in this galaxy is greater. Thinking of this, Li Ming raised his hand and confirmed his teleportation target. Under Li Ming's operation, the system began to move towards Jin Galaxy. Li Ming was teleporting, but at this moment, on Sirius, the giant Teoti was standing in front of a mountain, looking at the opposite side with cold eyes. The one who was opposing Teoti was Nuaya. In addition to the confrontation between the two, there were also a large number of troops behind them. However, behind Teoti were all beasts of the beast tribe, while behind Nuaya were a large number of aircraft and spaceships. The reason why we didn't attack the filthy shadow insects was for this negotiation. Teoti, we have coexisted for so long, you won't really attack us at this time. Nuaya said coldly. Teoti was furious, his hands clenched into fists, and his teeth kept showing in his trembling mouth. He said, but you killed my military advisor. This is absolutely unforgivable. As he spoke, one of the huge fists suddenly swung down. Nua's eyes changed slightly, and her hands were raised. White light flashed, and a rectangular shadow block suddenly appeared in front of her hands. Bang! With a deafening roar, Teoti's fist hit a solid wall. There is no doubt that Teoti's attack is strong, and the second level civilization cannot resist it at all. But under this attack, the rectangular shadow did not even shake, and was completely unharmed. Teoti seemed to know about Nua's ability, so he did not have any abnormal reaction, but slowly retracted his arm. Then how should I make up for my loss? Teoti's expression had turned cold. Nua's eyes softened. It was naturally unnecessary to fight thoroughly, and it was natural to be able to talk. In the end, Teoti's words opened the door to negotiation. At this moment, Li Ming's spaceship continued to transmit. Time passed little by little, and Li Ming closed his eyes and rested in the main cabin. The Jin Super Galaxy had appeared on the operating table, which was Li Ming's destination. After an unknown amount of time, Li Ming's eyes slowly opened, glanced at the operating table, and his figure slowly stood up. Serra, a huge planet, has huge buildings on its surface, just like the civilization here, with huge size. But just as Li Ming's spaceship was approaching the planet little by little, another spaceship was also quietly approaching the planet. That spaceship was similar to Li Ming's spaceship, but the difference was that the surface of this spaceship was rusty and yellowish, and there were long objects like cloth strips hanging on the surface of the spaceship. Li Ming had never seen such an antique spaceship before, but it might also be a spaceship in the Jin Super Galaxy, so Li Ming didn't care. Li Ming's attention returned to the information about Serra. Serra is not like other planets, which are all bright and beautiful high-tech items. It is relatively old and the buildings are all rock buildings, but this is only the surface. The civilization here uses the energy contained in the rocks to combine information technology with the energy of the rocks, so that the rock buildings also have the ability of high-tech civilization. Not only that, it is also more suitable for the survival of civilized creatures in this environment. These basic information allowed Li Ming to quickly lock on the location of Sawyer's headquarters on the planet. After a few flashes, the spaceship had arrived in the space of Sarah. But just as Li Ming was about to enter the planet, the khaki spaceship also arrived in the space of Sarah star. Before Li Ming started to operate, the khaki spaceship suddenly made a muffled bang sound and sent out a metal ball. The metal ball was oval, not big, 3 meters long, like an egg. Li Ming frowned slightly when he saw this situation and couldn't help whispering, "Orc civilization? Could it be Justina?" The metal ball reminded Li Ming of Justina, and now he thought of Justina, and it was exactly the same as what he saw. Li Ming already knew Justina's information. This person's purpose was to find genes suitable for the continuation of Orc civilization. Li Ming didn't care too much. Judging from Li Ming's experience of fighting with the other party, there was no need to worry too much. Thinking of this, Li Ming raised his hand and lightly tapped. The light on the operating table flashed, and Li Ming's spaceship disappeared from the spot with a hum. When the spaceship reappeared, it was already above the construction area on Sarah star. However, as soon as the spaceship stopped, 4 aircrafts had already surrounded it. In the main cabin, Li Ming glanced at the control panel. An authentication message had been sent. He snorted and didn't care. He turned and walked out. With a flash of blue light, Li Ming came to the bottom of the spaceship. The reason why he invaded so openly was that he wanted to test the ability of a purple crystal on his body. With a flash of white light in his hand, the light blade was already in his hand. At the same time, his body moved, and his eyes locked on a certain building. With just a flash, Li Ming's figure had appeared on the top of the building. With his keen eyes, Li Ming still noticed that Sawyer was in this building. With a slight smile on his lips, the green light on his body had been released. Before he really used the purple crystal, Li Ming still wanted to see Sawyer's true strength. The powerful green light flew around like a green dragon, and this was just the result of Li Ming's maximization of his spiritual consciousness. The building under his feet was soon shrouded in it. After a few seconds, the top of the building flashed with blue light, and a huge figure as tall as a corn slowly emerged. This person had gray skin, hard armor on his body, and a hideous face. As soon as he appeared, he looked at Li Ming viciously. "A mere person, you challenge me?" Sawyer said disdainfully, because Sawyer had just noticed Li Ming's 1.9 level civilization. Li Ming, with a calm expression on his face, said, "Hand over Liu Zuan, and I'll leave right away." Sawyer laughed coldly and replied, "It's the first time I've seen someone ask me for something so directly, and it's Liu Zuan." As they said this, the energy on the surface of the two people's bodies began to overflow from their bodies. Although they hadn't taken action yet, the energy aura on their bodies was already colliding with each other. Feeling the other party's powerful energy aura, Li Ming's left hand slowly took out a fingertip-sized purple crystal, and then squeezed it hard. Bang! The purple crystal turned into a purple smoke, and attached to the surface of Li Ming's body. That clear feeling emerged. Chapter 559, Earthcore Cage. Is this person here to challenge Lord Sawyer? What should we do now? Should we take action? Li Ming's soldiers were talking to each other while looking at the top of the building. However, at this moment, a guy in a black cloak quietly appeared among the aliens. This alien was dressed in black, with a human body in the lower half, but the upper half was wrapped in a black cloak, and even the face was not exposed. He raised his head slightly, looked at the top of the building in the distance, and locked his eyes on Sawyer. He whispered softly, "The information Justina found should be him, so let's take them all away." As he said this, he slowly raised his right hand, and a metal capsule appeared in his palm, and then he slapped it to the ground. "Earth core binding cage." He shouted softly, and the earth shook instantly. The violently shaking earth was like an earthquake, but the power was far greater than an earthquake. The walking aliens could not stand at all, and their bodies almost fell down in the shaking. the surrounding buildings began to crack, and the ground in the construction area was already making banging sounds, as if the earth was being torn apart, and gaps more than a foot wide appeared. Even Li Ming and Sawyer, who were on the roof, felt a little unstable, and they both stood up and flew into the air. At this time, 2 light curtain barriers shot out from the ground first. The 2 light curtain barriers were dark black and semicircular, and they shot out from 2 directions of the construction area, like 2 gates. Bang! With a muffled sound, the 2 barriers collided in the air. At this moment, it was like a gate was closed, and the construction area under the black barrier became dark. The 2 barriers were spliced together to form a huge semicircle, covering the entire construction area. The barrier has been formed. The man in the black cloak slowly stood up, smiled slightly, and whispered, "Let's go to the Centaurus galaxy cluster together." As he said this, the ground suddenly shook more violently, and a large area of buildings began to collapse. The entire construction area was in chaos, and the aliens fled everywhere. Flames and explosions occurred one after another. In just a few seconds, the entire construction area was like hell, devastated and in ruins. With the violent shaking, the previous barrier began to change. The black barrier became darker and darker, and the density was slowly increasing. At this time, Li Ming didn't know what happened. He looked up and looked at it intently. Under his wise eyes, he had already seen something strange, and his brows were tightly frowned. The black barrier was actually solidifying bit by bit. Even Sawyer on the opposite side didn't know what happened, but the phenomenon in front of him made the muscles on his face twitch slightly, and his lips trembled slightly under his angry eyes. The hell that had suddenly turned into hell made Sawyer clench his fists and said viciously, "You're dead this time." As soon as he finished speaking, Sawyer moved his body and smashed his huge fist directly at Li Ming. Li Ming was shocked, but he was not panicked. He suddenly stretched out his right hand, and a golden hand instantly formed in the void. Bang! The golden hand grabbed Sawyer in the palm of his hand. Sawyer's body tensed up, and he couldn't move. Li Ming just glanced at him coldly, not taking it to heart at all, and began to look around. Li Ming knew very well that this barrier was definitely not released by Sawyer. After all, this was the headquarters of Serestar. How could Sawyer kill his people in this way? But at this moment, a loud shout was heard, and black flames suddenly burned on the surface of Sawyer's body. The golden hand squeaked, and cracks appeared on it. Li Ming looked at the other party again. Bang! The golden hand shattered, like a mirror. Li Ming's expression tensed up, and he flew back to a distance. At this time, Li Ming's attention was still on the barrier. The black barrier was no longer an ordinary phantom barrier, but a solid metal barrier, and a black light was flashing on its surface. At this time, in the ruins, a figure dressed in black gently raised his head, and a blue light flashed on his wrist. He then said, "Isabel, the earth binding cage has been completed, and we can set off." At this time in the space, in the main cabin of the spacecraft, a guy with a human lower body and an octopus head on the upper body kept waving his tentacles. "Isadora, clean up the waste inside. Our only target is Sawyer. See you on Nordstar." As soon as she finished speaking, Isabel directly disconnected the connection, and then a tentacle slightly touched the operating table. After a slight hum sound, circles of energy ripples came out from the bottom of the spacecraft. The ring-shaped energy ripples disappeared as soon as they appeared, as if they had never appeared, and when the ripples appeared again, they were already on the huge metal barrier on Serestar. The metal ball condensed by the barrier was extremely hard. After receiving the ripple energy, it suddenly trembled slightly, and then began to rise slowly. The entire barrier was circular, but when Isadora released it, half of it was underground. At this time, under the effect of the spacecraft's energy, the entire sphere began to rise from the ground, like a giant egg, but half of it was buried underground and half was on the surface. The entire giant metal ball covered the entire area of the building area, and this device also directly took away the land completely. As the sphere rose into the air little by little, a large number of spaceships and aircraft appeared around it. These spaceships and aircraft directly launched attacks, and high-energy lasers shot at the metal ball one by one. Although the high-energy laser was powerful, it flashed and disappeared as soon as it touched the surface of the metal ball, as if it was absorbed by it. The huge metal ball suddenly stopped after flying 100 meters above the ground, which stopped the spaceships and aircraft that had been attacking. All the aliens opened their eyes wide, unable to believe what they saw. Under the crazy attack of the high energy laser, the metal ball was actually intact. A few seconds later, bang! The huge metal ball disappeared in the air. When the metal ball reappeared, it was right below the gray spaceship in the universe. The metal ball was too huge, and its volume had exceeded that of the spaceship, but the top of the metal ball was perfectly connected to the bottom of the spaceship. Isabel looked at the console in front of her, and the spaceship and the metal ball were clearly displayed on it. Isabel was satisfied, raised her hand, and tapped the console, and an order was issued. The surface of the spaceship was glimmering, and the light waves like water ripples slid from the spaceship to the metal ball below. After the light waves flashed back and forth twice, a muffled sound of bang was heard, and the spaceship and the metal ball disappeared together. No matter how the outside changed, the inside of the metal ball was not affected at all. Li Ming and Sawyer were still fighting fiercely, but Li Ming, who had the purple light crystal block, did not take the other party seriously at all. Even though Sawyer looked extremely powerful, he could not do anything to Li Ming, and was frequently countered by Li Ming. After obtaining the ability to combine through the purple light, Li Ming's strength has become extraordinary. Even Sawyer of the second level civilization can't do anything to Li Ming. But Li Ming has been checking the barrier and monitoring the surroundings. This barrier, could it be the Orc civilization? Li Ming said to himself. Li Ming saw the Orc spaceship after entering Sarah Star, but Li Ming did not find that Justina had this ability when he fought with her before. At this time, the appearance of this strange and powerful barrier made Li Ming think of something wrong. Go to hell. A loud shout was issued, and Sawyer's figure fell from the sky, and the fist burning with black flames rushed straight to Li Ming's head. Li Ming's eyes were horizontal, and he waved his right hand, and a white beam of light shot out from his palm. Swoosh! The beam of light was exactly Li Ming's previous light blade ability. The difference was that under the same energy, the light blade was now more powerful, and formed in a soft way. After the sound, the white beam of light wrapped around Sawyer. This beam of light itself has the ability to cut, and wrapping it up is like a blade wrapping a piece of meat. Sawyer felt his body tightened, and he couldn't move at all. Not only that, the light blade was still tightening little by little, and the black light shield on Sawyer's body began to shatter little by little, and even the armor under the shield immediately cracked. Sawyer had an unbelievable expression on his face. After all, his opponent was only a 1.9 level civilization, and he, a second level civilization, couldn't match him. It was as if he was a toy in the hands of the opponent, and could be killed at any time. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 516 New Strength. As the light blade tightened, the black shield and armor had been cut through the metal, and the light began to enter Sawyer's body like a sharp light blade. Sawyer resisted tenaciously. His strong body and the energy that was constantly released made Sawyer struggle on the verge of death. Li Ming was relaxed and natural. After a light hum, the palm of his right hand, that originally released white light, suddenly flashed with green light, and a beam of green shadow swept along the surface of the white light blade. The green light shadow seemed inconspicuous, but when it approached Sawyer, it suddenly shone brightly, and a huge green palm emerged. With a strong grasp of the palm, a star bag was grabbed out, and then the green light returned to Li Ming's palm along the white light blade. With the star bag in hand, Li Ming showed satisfaction, and gently clenched his right hand, and the white light also disappeared. Sawyer saw all this, but he could only watch helplessly without any way. After the white light blade disappeared, Sawyer's body regained freedom, but he did not immediately get angry and attack Li Ming, but just watched from a distance. Li Ming looked at his palm, and after confirming the items in the star bag, he smiled with satisfaction. He clenched his palm, and the star bag was put away. He raised his eyes slightly, and looked at Sawyer, saying, "Your target is not me. I came here just for Leon, and it was that person who destroyed this place." As he spoke, Li Ming's eyes turned and looked at the construction area below. In the ruins, a black figure was walking towards this side. It was Isadora. Sawyer looked at Isadora and then looked at Li Ming again. Li Ming continued, "This guy's the Orc civilization." At this point, Li Ming looked up at the barrier in the air and continued, "This thing should be made by this guy. If we don't break through this thing, we can only be trapped here." Sawyer's face changed after hearing the words Orc civilization, and he whispered in surprise. Lady Nua said, "Orc civilization?" Surprised, Sawyer stared at Isadora, and his face became very ugly. Li Ming also looked cautious. But at this time, Isadora's feet paused, and she stopped where she was. Under the black cloak, a tentacle stretched out, and the long tentacle gently wrapped a corner of the cloak, and then swung it hard. The black cloak was torn off from her body, and a monster with a red octopus upper body and a human lower body appeared. "It's impossible to get out. I originally came to capture Sawyer, but I didn't expect there would be an unexpected gain." When saying this, the octopus head looked at Li Ming. Looking at Li Ming with her eyes, Isadora was secretly surprised, and said in her heart, "Isn't the top gene that Justina said this guy?" Li Ming looked at Isadora calmly, indifferently, and his mouth moved slightly. He looked at Sawyer again and said, "As a reward for taking your LIU, I will kill this person first, and then find a way out." As soon as Li Ming said this, Sawyer's face changed. Sawyer knew the strength of the orcs very well, not to mention that he was a second level orc. His strength was not comparable to that of ordinary civilizations of the same level, and his overall strength was almost comparable to that of silicon-based life. Li Ming was only a 1.9 level civilization. No matter what, he could not be the opponent of the other party. But after Li Ming finished speaking, he moved and flew towards Isadora, looking at the other party and said, "If I kill you, this barrier should be able to be lifted." Huh! Exclamation mark. Isadora raised her head slightly, looked at Li Ming coldly, HMPH, and said, "It doesn't matter whether it can be lifted or not, but you chose to challenge me, which is an absolutely wrong choice." Li Ming didn't care at all. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he could actually see the other party's inner thoughts with his wisdom eyes. He couldn't help but secretly said in his heart, "Sure enough, after having the power of combination, the consciousness of the second level civilization can also be clearly seen. This strength is really too cool." Li Ming smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth, moved his body, and went straight to the other party. Isadora snorted disdainfully, and two red tentacles flew out like two arms. Swoosh! The red tentacles flew towards Li Ming like two poisonous tongues, and flames burned on the tentacles. Before the two tentacles approached Li Ming, there were two muffled bangs in the ruins underground, and two blue vines shot out from the ruins. The blue vines were extremely thick, and entangled the red tentacles as soon as they appeared, making them unable to move. As the two objects intertwined, streams of green smoke continued to emerge. The surface of the tentacles was flames, and the blue vines were also cold. The fusion of the two naturally produced a violent breath. The tentacles could not move forward or retract, and were firmly fixed by the vines, while Li Ming's figure continued to float towards him. Isadora's originally calm expression was a little uneasy at this moment, and her eyes were full of surprise. Then two more tentacles flew out. The two tentacles were in an arc shape, one on the left and one on the right, and they approached Li Ming in an embrace. Li Ming did not move, still looking unconcerned, but there were two more bangs in the ruins below, and two vines shot out like two sharp arrows. There were two soft snaps. The vines and the flame tentacles were entangled again, and the two tentacles were also firmly fixed. Li Ming's figure continued to approach the opponent, until he was only a few dozen meters away from the opponent. This distance was within the range of all Li Ming's attacks. At the same time, Li Ming's wisdom eyes could also see the thoughts in the opponent's mind more clearly. This was mainly due to the difference in civilization level. Even if they had the ability to combine, the farther distance still affected the wisdom eyes from obtaining more information. As he watched, an important piece of information suddenly entered Li Ming's mind, which made Li Ming frown and open his mouth slightly. Whispered, "We are not on Sera now?" As soon as this sentence came out, Isadora's face changed slightly, but she still said coldly, "It's really not easy." A mere 1.9 level civilization can see my consciousness, but no one can stop the earth-binding cage. It will perfectly send you to Nord Star. Li Ming was furious when he heard this. According to the information obtained by Li Ming, the barrier space he was in had been taken away from Ceres Star and was heading to the distant Centaurus galaxy cluster. More importantly, this barrier cannot be cracked. If you want to open it, you can only reach Nord Star in the Centaurus galaxy cluster and be opened by the local orcs. In other words, Li Ming will definitely be taken to Nord Star. Thinking of this, Li Ming's face looked extremely ugly. And Isadora continued, if you cooperate with us obediently, it will be an honor to be the source of the continuation of the orc civilization. Li Ming said nothing, just looked at the other party coldly, but he was already thinking about something in his mind. While Li Ming was thinking, Isadora continued, don't worry, you won't die soon. Such a powerful and rare gene must be used to the fullest. Sawyer was so scared that his face turned pale and his body trembled slightly. He looked at Isadora and then at Li Ming. At this time, Li Ming had already thought of something. He snorted and said, we really won't die soon. But, you may die soon. As soon as the voice fell, Li Ming's eyes flashed coldly and his figure disappeared from the spot. When Li Ming appeared again, he was already behind Isadora, with white light flashing in his hand, and the light blade directly pierced the opponent's body. After hitting the target, Li Ming showed a satisfied look, but before the smile on his face could unfold, the tentacles behind Isadora suddenly swept towards Li Ming. This behavior was beyond Li Ming's expectation. Before he could react, the long snake-like tentacles immediately wrapped around Li Ming. Fortunately, there was a magic shield of golden light on Li Ming's body, and the tentacles did not touch his flesh, but only wrapped around the surface of the golden light. Despite this, the tentacles, which were emitting flaming light, were already tightening little by little, as if they were going to destroy the golden light. How is it possible? It clearly hit. Li Ming whispered to himself, but with a glance, he immediately realized. The heart is not in the chest, this guy is an octopus. Although Li Ming reacted, it was obviously too late. At this time, his body could not act rashly. He could only strengthen the golden shield to resist the opponent's attack. Isadora still had her back to Li Ming, but she glanced back slightly and said, this attack can't kill me. Chapter 561, Miscalculated. As Isadora spoke, the last two remaining tentacles began to stir. Li Ming frowned slightly, with a bit of doubt in his eyes. With Li Ming's mental power under the combined ability, there was no reason not to see the opponent's attack, but he was just entangled by the group of tentacles. The golden light magic shield made a squeaking sound, as if it was about to break at any time. What's going on? Could it be? Li Ming thought in his heart, and immediately understood that the power of the purple crystal block had been quietly consumed, so Li Ming's combined ability also disappeared, which led to the current situation. Without waiting for the two tentacles to attack, Li Ming's right hand suddenly pushed hard. Purple light flashed in his hand, and a hook flew out randomly. Because the distance was close enough, the hook hit the opponent's body at once. The shadow hook was exactly the magic weapon of the universe, the Dry Ghost. After Li Ming's long-term refining, the Dry Ghost was already considered Li Ming's consciousness and belonged to Li Ming. The most important thing is that this weapon is a weapon that is highly matched with spiritual civilization. There is no ranking of the vast universe magical weapons, but different weapons correspond to different civilizations, and the kanji UI used in front of him just matches Li Ming's spiritual civilization. The hook sickle entered Isadora's body and directly hooked the opponent's soul, and Li Ming pulled the chain in his right hand with force, and the opponent's soul was dragged out with a buzz. The sudden and rapid attack made Isadora unable to react. After the attack, Isadora fell to the ground with a thump, and the tentacles also collapsed and fell to the ground. Li Ming breathed a sigh of relief, and the blue flame on his body suddenly ignited, and Isadora's soul was immediately swallowed by the blue light phantom. Li Ming's operation was seen by Sawyer. At this time, Sawyer looked at Li Ming with shock, staring at Li Ming with wide eyes, unable to believe what he saw. Li Ming looked at Isadora on the ground, waved his right hand, and a white arc flashed. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and Isadora was directly evaporated by the white light. After doing all this, Li Ming suddenly raised his head and looked at Sawyer in the air. As soon as he met Li Ming's eyes, even Sawyer, who was a level 2 civilization, paused with a bit of fear in his eyes. Li Ming moved and flew to a place not far in front of Sawyer. He looked at him intently and said, "If you want to survive, you'd better listen to me." Sawyer's eyebrows twitched slightly, and he just looked at Li Ming with a frozen expression without saying a word. At this moment, the spaceship was flying in the air. Isabel in the main cabin looked at the control panel with satisfaction and said to herself, "We are finally almost there." The control panel was showing a huge nebula, which was the Centaurus galaxy cluster, and the final coordinate position of the control panel was the star Asta in the Lapnum galaxy. Watching with both eyes, Isabel clicked on the console again, and a blue light flashed, and then a message popped up. Connection failed. Upon seeing this message, Isabel's face changed slightly, and she whispered, "Connection failed. Did Isadora do something?" Isabel was startled at first, and then immediately clicked again. The bottom of the spaceship flashed blue light, and the place where it was connected to the metal ball shook buzzing, and then black ripples rippled from the bottom of the connection. The top of the entire giant metal ball began to blur into a phantom state. At this time, the situation inside the metal ball immediately appeared on the console. I saw Isadora sitting on the top of a building that had not been completely destroyed, and Sawyer was next to her. Isadora's armor was heavily damaged, and Sawyer was tied up with chains and could not move at all. Seeing this scene, Isabel was relieved, smiled slightly, and said, "It seems that she has also experienced a battle." As she spoke, she clicked again, and the bottom of the spaceship flashed again, and the top of the metal ball that was originally a phantom gradually became solid and returned to the state of a metal ball. All of this was also under Li Ming's attention. Now Li Ming has transformed into the appearance of Isadora. After looking up at the top of the metal ball, his eyes returned to Sawyer beside him. "This barrier is indestructible to you and me, and this barrier will eventually be opened in the Centauri galaxy cluster, which is the headquarters of the Orcs. By that time, you and I will be dead," Li Ming said seriously. Sawyer had heard some of this meaning from the conversation between Li Ming and Isadora just now. Now when he heard this from Li Ming's mouth, his face turned extremely ugly. But Li Ming's expression changed, and he continued, "But I just got the flow from you. If I can advance to the second level civilization, you and I may still have a chance of survival." Hearing that there was still hope of survival, Sawyer's expression changed immediately, staring at Li Ming, and said, Then you." Sawyer wanted to say something, but he didn't say it. Li Ming still had a serious expression, took a deep breath, and said, "While I advance, I rely on you outside. This is a matter of life and death for you and me." Sawyer nodded vigorously and didn't say anything more. Li Ming also slowly stood up, jumped up, and left from the roof. At this time, Sawyer knew very well that if Li Ming advanced to the second level civilization, he would have some hope of survival. After all, he had seen Li Ming's strength just now. He could kill the second level civilization at level 1.9, and it was a half orc. In addition, Sawyer's desire to survive. The higher the civilization, the more eager to survive. It was not easy to reach this level, and nothing was more important than survival. For Li Ming, it was slightly different. Sawyer's life and death naturally had little to do with Li Ming. At this time, Sawyer's greatest use was to help Li Ming hide his identity. Only after advancing to the second level civilization and increasing his strength would Li Ming's only hope of survival be. The current building area has been completely destroyed. Li Ming found a relatively intact building bottom and leaned over to sit down. It was dark here, a bit like a basement. There was only one entrance and exit, and a barrier had been set up by Li Ming. Li Ming sat cross-legged in it, preparing to advance. With a flip of his right hand, 3 pale yellow spheres slowly flew out from his palm. These 3 spheres were not absolutely round, and the surface was bumpy and uneven, like the surface of the moon. The surface flashed with a faint pale yellow light, constantly releasing energy. Ordinary 1.9 level civilization only needs 1, but Li Ming needs 3. Looking at these 3 objects, Li Ming showed a satisfied look. The 3 objects were matched with the power of the moving clouds. Li Ming also happened to have 3 of the power of the moving clouds on his body, all of which were obtained when he obtained the flow. Although he possessed the power of moving clouds, Li Ming had no intention of using it. Compared to the power of moving clouds, Li Ming preferred the water of the Milky Way. The water of the Milky Way was natural energy, which contained all special energy bodies. Using natural energy to advance indirectly changed the changes in the energy in Li Ming's body. The changeable energy was more conducive to Li Ming's ability to display wisdom and civilization. According to the volume of the power of moving clouds, Li Ming needed to separate the same amount of the power of the Milky Way from the water of the Milky Way in order to advance. Thinking in his mind, Li Ming had already started to operate. A large drop of the Milky Way water slowly flew out from Li Ming's palm, and at the same time, the 3 streams began to rotate around Li Ming. This rotation was not a very regular orbit, but a random rotation. It was crisscrossed, just like 3 planets rotating around a star. While rotating, a pale yellow light shone on Li Ming's body surface, and a comfortable feeling came immediately. Li Ming looked satisfied. After taking a deep breath, he opened his mouth, and the drop of the Milky Way water washed into Li Ming's mouth. As soon as the water of the Cheyenne River entered his throat, it was like a mouthful of strong liquor, extremely spicy, and the hot feeling spread to his stomach. Li Ming immediately found it difficult to resist. The abilities of the 3 Liuan were immediately exerted to the extreme. Despite this, Li Ming still felt waves of pain throughout his body. What's going on? Li Ming was puzzled. His expression suddenly became ugly, beads of sweat kept flowing down his forehead, and the pain was still getting worse. The volume of the water of the Cheyenne River is the same as the power of the moving clouds. Why is it so explosive now? The pain was still getting worse, and the limit of the body's endurance seemed to be challenged. But Li Ming still couldn't figure it out. Chapter 562. Assisting in Advancement. According to Li Ming's experience, if the advanced materials and energy volume are matched, no accidents will happen, and there will be no such unbearable pain now. Li Ming only felt that the pain was getting worse and worse, as if the fire was burning from the abdomen to the whole body, and the blood seemed to be the pipeline of the flame, constantly igniting the whole body. Could it be? Li Ming seemed to think of something under this pain. In Li Ming's cognition, there is a gap between energy and energy. The same volume of energy has different qualities, and there will be a huge gap. For the same drop of energy, the water of the Cheyenne must be higher than the light energy. Now that this situation has occurred, it can only be said that Li Ming's calculation is wrong. The quality of the water of the Cheyenne must be much stronger than the power of the clouds, but it's too late to say this now. Damn, I always do such stupid things. Li Ming complained secretly, frowned slightly, and began to think of a solution. But as soon as he opened his mind to distract himself, the pain in his whole body intensified immediately. This made Li Ming unable to think anymore. He gritted his teeth and said to himself, fuck, I can't resist this just at the beginning. In the midst of the pain, a red light suddenly flashed behind Li Ming, and a pair of red phantom wings spread out, and then a big bird flew out. It was Moore. Moore's body was wrapped by the red phantom bird, and a pair of red feathers immediately wrapped Li Ming up. Under the suppression of the red light, the pain was slightly reduced, and Li Ming was slightly relieved. It seems that Moore is helping. Moore has the ability to assist in advancement, and has provided assistance to Li Ming in his advancement many times. It is not surprising that he suddenly appeared at this time. But the pain only subsided for a moment, and then intensified immediately. Li Ming's face changed, and he said in surprise, what's going on? Is the amount of Cheyenne water too much? The uncontrollable pain continued to erode the energy of the body. The burning sensation in the body gradually turned into a feeling of expansion, as if the body was about to explode. The situation became more and more serious. Li Ming was gradually pushed to the limit, as if death would come at any time. At this critical moment, Li Ming's right hand suddenly turned over, and a purple light flashed in the palm of his hand. The purple crystal block floated out. The purple crystal block was only the size of a fingertip. As soon as it appeared, it turned into purple smoke, and swirled around Li Ming's body. Under the entanglement of the purple smoke, the pain in his body was immediately relieved. Without the intense pain, Li Ming breathed a sigh of relief again, thinking to himself, I didn't expect that this thing could actually assist in advancement. Unexpectedly, but also an unexpected gain, the purple smoke entered Li Ming's body little by little, helping Li Ming absorb energy. Although the purple crystal block has the ability to assist in advancement, the speed of consumption is amazing. The fingertip-sized crystal block was consumed in just a moment. Even though the auxiliary ability is extremely strong, it is consumed very quickly. At this moment, Li Ming no longer cares about these. As long as he feels the pain of swelling intensifies, he will use the purple crystal block immediately. Although the purple crystal block is rare, it is nothing compared to being alive. Li Ming operated in this way. Isabel drove the spaceship into the Lapnum galaxy and was getting closer and closer to the big star. But just as she entered the star system, Isabel in the main cabin of the spaceship suddenly changed her face. She saw a red dot flashing on the console and 2 spaceships were coming towards her position. With a slight frown, Isabel quickly pointed at the console and said, "Headquarters, Isabel is in some trouble now." The console immediately responded, "Received. Send a spaceship to support immediately." Isabel looked at the light spot that was gradually approaching her spaceship, cancelled the original route, and changed to another target point. At this moment, a blue light flashed on the console, and the image of an alien with a crystal head appeared. With a solemn face, he said coldly, "Drop the Earth core cage and I will let you go, otherwise I will attack immediately." Looking at the crystal alien on the screen, Isabel gritted her teeth and said fiercely, "It's the Jingpo civilization again." As she spoke, Isabel forced her finger to cut off the connection, and her colleague clicked again on the console, and the spacecraft went straight to another direction. At this time, the 2 spacecrafts in the distance were clearly visible. The appearance of the 2 spacecrafts was X-shaped. The surface was not smooth metal, but pieces of crystal blocks, as if they were made of broken crystals. In the center of the main cabin of the spacecraft, an alien covered with crystal blocks showed anger, and looked at the console and said, "Destroy it." "Yes." An alien in front of the console immediately stretched out his hand and clicked. The front end of the X-shaped spacecraft suddenly made a sizzling sound, and a high-energy electromagnetic cannon had been formed. Another X-shaped spacecraft made the same move. Although the 2 spacecraft were still far away from the target, the attack had already locked the target. Swoosh! 2 noises were heard, and the 2 electromagnetic cannons shot out of the air, like 2 spheres formed by electric arcs, dragging long arc tails as they flit quickly, like meteors. Seeing this, Isabel's expression tightened, and she saw the surface of the spaceship flashing red, and a powerful energy shield had emerged. At this moment, Isabel was operating the spaceship to quickly move in the opposite direction, as if she was going to leave the Lapnum galaxy. While she was doing this, she also launched a counterattack on the other side. An electromagnetic cannon was also gathered on the top of the spaceship, but the target was not the 2 spaceships, but the electromagnetic cannon that was approaching her. Swoosh! A light sound was heard, and the condensed electromagnetic cannon shot out. Boom! A loud noise was heard, and the 2 electromagnetic cannons collided in the vacuum of the universe. Suddenly, the white light was dazzling, and the powerful energy shockwave spread out, but the other electromagnetic cannon directly hit Isabel's spaceship. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the light flashed. The spaceship shook, and was knocked far away. The red energy shield on the surface also flashed and almost broke. The 2 spaceships blocked the way to the big star. If they continued to approach the big star, they would inevitably be attacked more fiercely. Therefore, it became extremely important for Isabel to dodge behind them. This electromagnetic cannon had already broken the energy shield. If it was hit again, the spaceship would definitely be severely damaged. Isabel looked at the operating table and bit the bullet to let the spaceship teleport back the way it came. Seeing this, the spaceship behind him would not let it go. It started the spaceship and began to chase. At this time, Li Ming knew nothing about the situation outside, but after the spaceship was attacked by the electromagnetic cannon, the metal ball where Li Ming was also vibrated violently. It seemed nothing unusual from the outside, but it was like an earthquake inside the metal ball. No matter what was happening outside, Li Ming could not be distracted at all, and devoted himself to the advancement. The spaceship approached the Virgo galaxy cluster again. Isabel tried her best to get rid of the spaceship behind her, but it was too difficult for the current situation. Looking at the control panel, Isabel looked worried and said to herself, because of the geocentric cage, the energy consumption of the spaceship is huge. If it continues like this, it will be destroyed sooner or later. But if I give up the geocentric cage now? Isabel was in hesitation. But at this moment, she had to make a decision. Giving up the geocentric cage would inevitably result in heavy losses. More importantly, there was her partner, Isadora, inside. But if she didn't give up, she might die. After a little thought, Isabel immediately locked onto a black planet not far away. Then let's go here first. As she spoke, several tentacles were operated at the same time. Isabel was going to land directly on this black planet with the geocentric cage and send the location of the planet to the headquarters. The information on Isabel's control panel was like a picture, directly transmitted to another distant spaceship. There was an alien on the spaceship looking at the console. The alien's upper body was humanoid, and his lower body was the lower half of a crocodile, but he was standing with a long tail behind him. As soon as he saw the information on the console, he said in a rough voice, "I have received the final landing target. I will be there soon." As he said this, Isabel had already arrived in a cabin of the spaceship. Chapter 563, Nguyen's Attack. After approaching the black planet, the spaceship driven by Isabel slowly stopped, and then two light whoosh sounds were heard. The earth core binding cage and a small metal ball 3 meters wide flew out together, and two metal balls, one large and one small, flew towards the black planet at the same time. This landing method is one of the civilizations of the orcs. Whether it is invasion or war, the metal ball condensed by the barrier can not only evade the defense system, but also has strong defense. This black planet is located at the edge of the galaxy, similar to a wandering planet, but it revolves around the Virgo galaxy cluster regularly. In the center of the galaxy cluster, there is a giant attractor, also called a large gravitational source. This is the core of the entire galaxy cluster, and those large galaxies also revolve around this center. Its law is like the planets revolving around stars to form star systems, such as the solar system, but the solar system revolves around the center of the Milky Way. The center of the Milky Way is a black hole with huge gravitational force, which belongs to a large galaxy. Large galaxies like the Milky Way still revolve around the giant attractor in the local galaxy group. The wandering planet in front of us is also wandering on the edge of the Virgo galaxy cluster. The metal ball passed through the vacuum universe and directly entered the atmosphere of the black planet. It fell deep into the black ground at an incredibly fast speed in just a moment. The large and small metal balls were in completely different directions and landed in different places on the black planet. At the same time as the metal balls fell, two X-shaped crystal block spaceships also approached the planet. But the two spaceships did not enter immediately. In the main cabin of one of the spaceships, the alert alien looked at the control panel with hesitation. "Bernice, do you want to continue chasing?" The face of another crystal alien appeared on the control panel. The crystal man named Bernice said, "No, our goal is to ambush their source body as much as possible. Now there should be a spaceship reinforcement coming. We will go forward on the way back and directly destroy the reinforcement spaceship." "Okay." The alien on the control panel agreed immediately. Then the two spaceships turned in the air and flew back. At this moment, the huge metal ball Li Ming was fell directly to the ground. Boom. A loud noise was heard. Such a huge object smashed a huge pit on the surface of the planet. A large number of black buildings were directly destroyed by the impact, and the shockwave of the impact destroyed all the black buildings nearby. The impact force was like an asteroid impact. Compared with this huge metal ball, the small metal ball, where Isabel was located, was much more stable, and only formed a small pit on the ground that was more than 10 meters long and wide. The surface of the metal ball flashed with blue light, and with a light sound of pop, the metal ball opened a lid, and a faint light flashed inside. Isabel flew out of it. When she came to a height of several dozen meters, Isabel frowned and showed a strange look on her face. Although this planet looks black from space, the surface of the planet is densely packed with buildings. The black buildings are ordinary rock structures, standing on the ground in rectangular shapes, densely packed, like a black jungle. On the technological planets of advanced civilizations, most of them will be completely transformed, so such a group of buildings is naturally not surprising. Isabel looked around with a purple face. Although there are many black buildings here, there is no alien or other creatures. More importantly, the black buildings here look shabby. There is nothing unusual except the black color. A large number of building parts have fallen off the surface of the buildings. It's like peeling skin. After checking it out, Isabel moved her body and flew away. Flying in the air, there were black buildings all below her. There were so many buildings, and the buildings were quite old. Overall, it looked like a deserted planet. While flying, Isabel raised her hand and looked at the blue light on her wrist. One of the light spots was still flashing. "It's very close," Isabel whispered. As she continued to approach the light spot, the building landscape below her began to change dramatically. The building complex became a ruin. As she continued to approach, most of the buildings were only left with debris, and a huge deep pit appeared in the distance. The building was directly raised to the ground, and in the deep pit was a huge metal ball. Here, Isabel smiled slightly, but just as Isabel was about to approach, a figure in the air in the distance was looking at the metal ball. This alien was huge and strong, more than 3 meters tall. His seemingly fat body was full of strong muscles. His armor was shining, and the two curved horns on his head were like two sharp sickles. The sudden appearance of this alien made Isabel stop in her tracks, and she looked at him intently. The person standing next to the metal ball was Nguyen from the Earth Bath Organization, and this black planet was also the headquarters of the Earth Bath Organization. After just a moment of looking, Nguyen's head suddenly turned and looked behind him. Isabel's eyes and Nguyen's eyes met. Just by looking at each other, Nguyen's expression immediately tightened, and he looked at each other carefully, and his eyes seemed to think of something. "Half orc," Nguyen said in a low voice. Isabel didn't know Nguyen's identity, so she just looked at him coldly. After hesitating for a moment, she snorted and didn't care. With a move, Isabel ran straight towards Nguyen. Nguyen gently grasped his right hand to his waist, and an axe was already in his hand. Without waiting for the opponent to get close, Nguyen suddenly swung his right hand. Boom. A loud noise was heard, and the axe blade passed through the air, and a wave of flames broke through the air. The flame blade formed a shock wave, and rushed straight to the opponent. Before the flame wave reached the opponent, the high temperature had already distorted the space, as if the air was ignited. Isabel's expression tightened, and the two blue tentacles swung, and the icy breath immediately greeted it. Bang! The high temperature flame wave and the icy tentacles collided with each other, and a dull sound was heard. The energy of the collision turned into waves and scattered. Nguyen's expression became very solemn, and he whispered, "It just so happens that the other members of the organization are not at the headquarters, and the orcs are invading at this time. It's really a test for me." As he said this, his palm clenched the axe blade even more. Isabel was indifferent and said nothing. Her figure moved, and quickly swooped over. Seeing this, Nguyen's eyes were glaring, and he swung his axe blade, and went straight up. In the sky, Isabel and Nguyen were already standing together. Isabel's attack mainly opened 8 tentacles, all of which had ice attributes, and the inner attack had extreme cold ice. Nguyen's axe blade attack happened to be a fire attribute. The fight between the two was like a collision between ice and fire, and each impact produced a strong energy breath. Shock waves were also continuously emitted under the impact of energy. The 8 blue tentacles sometimes stretched out and sometimes turned around. In addition to the direct attack, they also kept entangled and swung, as if they were going to entangle Nguyen. However, Nguyen's flame axe blade was also extremely sharp, and the attacks of those tentacles naturally had to be extremely careful. If it was a head-on collision, it would inevitably be cut off by the axe blade. You come and die. Ice and fire blend. The two fought hard in the air, and they were evenly matched. Although the two were fighting fiercely, in the metal ball beside them, Li Ming's advancement had already come to an end. The water of the heavenly river that he had taken had been completely absorbed by his body. The next step was to be completely renewed and directly enter the critical point of the second level civilization. Around Li Ming, the 3 streams had turned into waste and fell to the ground, and the phantom of Moore's big bird also disappeared. The only thing that existed was the purple light on Li Ming's body. After a few seconds, Li Ming's eyes suddenly opened. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the entire metal ball was filled with energy and was about to rotate like an energy vortex. However, the energy vortex only rotated for a few seconds before a light whoosh sounded. Two celestial phenomena appeared at the same time. One was a vertical 3-color beam that shot out from the top of the metal ball. This beam did not destroy the metal ball, but just like a phantom, it passed through the barrier and rushed straight into the sky. Chapter 564. Extraordinary Advancement, Celestial Phenomenon. As the light beam was emitted, a circular light wave spread out with the metal ball as the center. One was a circular wave spreading out in parallel. The other was a light column rising vertically. Isabel and Nguyen, who were fighting fiercely, only felt a buzz. A breath flashed through their consciousness, causing them to stop and stand still, staring blankly at the metal ball. Both the light wave and the light beam were 3-color bodies. The light beam broke through the planet's atmosphere and rushed to the farther reaches of the universe, while the light wave also broke through the space of the black planet and continued to spread. From a sufficient angle, this special planet seemed to be about to explode. The light beam rushed out straight, and in the intricate universe dust, the light beam created a virtual shadow and rushed into the deep space of the universe without any influence. The circular light wave also spread rapidly, and the speed had exceeded the speed of light. The light wave directly covered half of the Virgo galaxy cluster, and any breath on the path would be affected. Isabel stared at the metal ball motionless, not knowing what happened. Nguyen also opened his eyes wide, showing a puzzled look. But the huge metal ball did not change at all, as if nothing had happened. At this time, Li Ming sat there with his eyes open, smiling. Now Li Ming is already a second-level civilization. The increase in energy makes Li Ming clearly feel that he is different from before. Li Ming did not make any move immediately, but after a slight sense, he said to himself, "The barrier has not been opened yet. It seems that we have not reached the Sagittarius galaxy cluster yet. Well, I just entered the second-level civilization, so it's a good time to practice my star identity." Thinking of this, Li Ming closed his eyes again. The Orc civilization is extremely powerful. It is not certain whether Li Ming can protect himself after entering the second-level civilization, but after entering a new stage, Li Ming's previously cultivated star identity can continue to improve, so that he can enhance his ability. Thinking of this, Li Ming began to practice. At this time, Isabel outside looked at Nguyen coldly. Just as she was about to continue to take action, the device in her hand suddenly made a slight sound, and a blue light flashed. A message was transmitted immediately. Message: the support troops have encountered some troubles, and may arrive later. Justina will pass by your coordinates. I have ordered her to go to support you. Seeing this content, Isabel's face changed slightly. She did not reply to anything, but looked at Nguyen opposite with cold eyes. She thought to herself, then kill this person first. Thinking so, her eyes showed fierceness, and her figure flew straight away. As her body flew, 8 tentacles flew out, and her momentum changed instantly. Nguyen's eyes suddenly became solemn, and her figure stepped back and headed straight to the ground. The 8 tentacles covered almost all angles of attack, which was extremely disadvantageous for Nguyen in the air, but returning to the ground was beneficial to Nguyen. Seeing Nguyen's actions, Isabel immediately snorted and whispered, "Want to run?" As soon as the voice fell, her figure came from the sky with the tentacles. The ice blue tentacles suddenly flashed, and the attack speed increased instantly. Before Nguyen landed, 2 of the tentacles had already wrapped around him. Nguyen frowned, turned around reluctantly, and swung the axe blade with force. The fire flashed, and a wave of flames shot out. Bang! One of the tentacles suddenly swung and blocked the flame blade. The energy wave spread out in the green smoke. From Nguyen's point of view, this attack was to block the 2 tentacles, but after the sound, only a cloud of green smoke was seen. Before Nguyen had time to breathe a sigh of relief, a whoosh sound broke through the air, and an ice blue tentacle rushed out from the green smoke. This sudden appearance startled Nguyen, and he felt his body tighten. The ice blue tentacle had already entangled him. The green smoke dissipated, and the other tentacle had already shriveled. It was the one that just blocked the flame blade. With his body entangled, Nguyen gritted his teeth, looked at the other party angrily, and whispered, "I heard that orcs have the attack consciousness and ability of civilized creatures, and also have the defense ability of uncivilized creatures. Then let me see your defense ability," Nguyen said immediately. Isabel looked disdainful upon hearing this. She snorted and said, "You are already under my control, yet you are still so arrogant." As she said this, the remaining tentacles suddenly flashed with light, intending to launch an attack. But at this moment, Nguyen suddenly roared in anger, and his strong body suddenly began to swell, like muscles that swell after exerting force. Even the tightly wrapped tentacles expanded with the swollen flesh. As his physique changed, the horns on Nguyen's head suddenly flashed red, and the center of the horns began to condense to form a red light spot. The light spot kept wriggling like a drop of water, but the powerful energy contained in Li Ming could be clearly sensed. Seeing the light spot on Nguyen's head getting bigger and bigger, Isabel's face changed slightly, but she didn't care too much. The 4 tentacles on her body suddenly began to entangle and condense with each other. After the 4 tentacles were entangled, they formed a concave bowl shape, and a blue light spot began to form in the center of the big bowl. This light spot was also formed by an energy body, and its powerful aura was no less than the red light spot on Nguyen's head. After a moment, the red light spot on Nguyen's head had turned into the size of a fist. He looked at the other party coldly and suddenly shouted, "Dominant flame." After the roar, Nguyen's body suddenly shot out like a cannonball, and his head flew straight towards Isabel. Isabel's expression remained unchanged, and her 4 tentacles pushed forward straight. The 4 tentacles intertwined with each other were like a palm holding a blue ice ball. On one side was a red energy ball, and on the other side was a blue energy ball. The condensed energy pushed the high temperature and extreme cold to their limits, and long blue and red tails were lifted during the flight. From a distance, it looked like 2 comets of different colors. Boom. A violent explosion sounded, and energy ripples spread out. With a hum, the shock wave spread out dozens of miles away, and the main area was suddenly submerged in the dust and smoke raised by the shock wave, and it could not be calmed for a long time. At this moment, a dilapidated spaceship was approaching the black planet little by little, and Justina was in the main cabin of the spaceship. Looking at the console in front of her, Justina said coldly, "Lord Abercrombie, are you sure you want me to go to the black planet?" As she spoke, Justina slowly turned her head and looked behind her. Behind Justina was an iron cage, in which a girl squatted motionlessly, with a terrified expression on her face. When Justina turned her head, a red dot appeared on the console, which was a spaceship chasing Justina's spaceship. The alien who was talking to Justina was Abercrombie, whose upper body was human, and whose lower body was a crocodile. "What do you mean by that? Do you want to disobey my order?" Abercrombie showed dissatisfaction. Justina shook her head quickly and replied, "No, I don't mean that. I was approaching the black planet according to your intention, but the source I just captured has caused some trouble. It's not a good idea for me to help Isabel at this time." Justina continued. Abercrombie was still serious and said, "I have sent away the young men from the Jingpo civilization. I'm worried that Isabel will get into trouble. You go to support them first. When I arrive, everything will be over." Justina looked worried. After looking at the operating table, she replied helplessly, "Okay, I will try my best." While speaking, her eyes did not leave the operating table at all. The red light spot was getting closer and closer to her spaceship. At this time, the dust on the black planet had dissipated. In a pile of soil, Nguyen slowly stood up from the ground. The armor on his body was a little damaged, but there were no obvious scars. Only the horns on his head were broken. In a pile of rocks farther away, Isabel slowly stood up. Her face was extremely ugly, and all 4 tentacles were broken. Nguyen stared at the other party intently and whispered, "The strength of the orcs is indeed extraordinary. I'm a level 2.2 civilization, but I'm only on par with a level 2 civilization. Do I have to use my maximum strength?" Whispering like this, he clenched his right hand again. Isabel on the opposite side also had a sad face and said, "It is indeed not an ordinary civilized creature. It may be impossible to kill it quickly." Chapter 565, Second Level Civilization. Inside the huge metal ball, Li Ming's eyes slowly opened, with a look of surprise on his face, and whispered, "I didn't expect that after the second level civilization, there would be such a huge change." As he said this, Li Ming's brows suddenly frowned again. He looked up at the exit, took a deep breath, and said to himself, "The barrier has not been opened yet. Has it not reached the headquarters of the Orc civilization yet?" As he said this, Li Ming fell into deep thought. After a moment, he hummed softly and whispered, "Then let me see what's going on." As he said this, Li Ming's right hand turned, and a green dragon emerged. Then a green light flashed, and the green dragon shot out, and disappeared in the entire space. After doing this, Li Ming closed his eyes again. At this time, Li Ming has begun to continue to deepen the ability he has just cultivated, and the knowledge he has gained. Li Ming has cultivated the 6th domain enhanced star book to the 3rd level, that is, the 3rd page. The star book is in the form of a book, with a total of 6 pages. The new cultivation progress also gave Li Ming a new understanding of it. The 1st and 2nd pages of the 6 domains enhanced star book are potential abilities. As long as they are used, any ability of Li Ming will be enhanced, and it does not consume his own energy. However, after practicing the 3rd page, Li Ming discovered something very different from before. When using the 6 domains enhanced star book, the eyeballs will change, and a large amount of energy will be consumed at the same time, which is completely different from the previous non-energy consumption. On the 1st page, the eyeballs are in the shape of water drops, and on the 2nd page, the eyeballs are in the shape of corners. On the 3rd page, the eyeballs are transformed into a triangle shape, which is the change of the eyes after use. Of course, although the 3rd level will consume a lot of energy, it can also bring great benefits to Li Ming, because Li Ming's other abilities will be greatly enhanced. Just as Li Ming felt when he first practiced this star book, the energy will be quickly sucked dry. Li Ming even called it a vampire star book. Now it seems that the use of this star book requires extremely high energy volume of the body. Then there is Li Ming's 6 domain star eyes, from which Li Ming has also cultivated a new ability, Illusion Dragon, which is completely different from the Flying Dragon, but the two cannot be used at the same time, or Li Ming has not yet fully cultivated it. At present, this is what Li Ming has just cultivated. As for the wisdom and other abilities, Li Ming has not yet started to study them. As for what level he can cultivate to, it will take time to show. While Li Ming was practicing, Long had already found something unusual outside the metal ball. The environment outside was very unfamiliar to Li Ming. While checking, Li Ming showed a trace of doubt, and said to himself, "Is this the headquarters of the orcs? No, not. Then where is this?" Li Ming looked confused. While he was confused, Long suddenly noticed something, that is, the 2 figures on the ground. With a flash of green light, Long quickly flew over. At this moment, the 2 people on the ground were on the verge of a fight, and it seemed that they were about to start a new fight. Isabel looked at Nguyen and saw that he didn't have a strong fighting consciousness. She just paid attention to Nguyen and said to herself, "If we can't kill this guy, then we have to hold on until reinforcement arrive." Nguyen on the opposite side also stared at this side and said to himself, "If we use that trick, we may be able to kill her, but there won't be only one orc attacking the headquarters of the Earthbath organization. We still have to save some energy to deal with unexpected events." The 2 people's minds were under Long's observation. By watching the 2 people, Li Ming also mastered a lot of information. The planet they are currently on is called Dark Earth Star. The headquarters of the Earthbath organization is in the same system as the Cheyenne-Mu organization in this galaxy group. The purpose is to prevent or restrict ordinary aliens from entering the 2nd level civilization. Such an organization belongs to a higher celestial civilization. The higher the level, the higher the demand for resources, and the resources that can be used for development are limited, because different levels of civilization have limited energy development technology. The 2nd level civilization already has the ability to develop stellar energy, which is not available in the 1st level civilization. Therefore, it is extremely important to prevent ordinary 1st level civilizations from entering the 2nd level civilization. This is why such an organization was established to control a galaxy group or a galaxy cluster. Behind this kind of organization is often a larger advanced civilization world. Either you integrate into that world and become a member who can share resources with them, or you can only be killed by them. This is the information obtained from Nguyen's consciousness. Isabel is different. The orc civilization is equal to half of the advanced civilization world, because there are many 2nd level civilizations in this civilization, but there are also many 1st level civilizations. It is a hybrid. The reason why it is half of the civilized world is entirely because this race is not recognized by other civilized races. As for why the civilization is not destroyed, Li Ming cannot know, but there is one thing that Li Ming is clear about, that is, the orc race will limit itself. Seeing these with his eyes, Li Ming understood a little bit, but more information also entered his mind little by little. From the brains of these two people, Li Ming discovered the reason why he arrived here. Of course, it is a good place for Li Ming now. After all, Li Ming's advancement and star cultivation are all prepared to deal with the orcs. Unexpectedly, he did not enter the orc headquarters unexpectedly. After understanding these situations, Li Ming needs to find a way to break the barrier metal ball and leave here. As he was thinking this, the situation outside had changed again. A spaceship suddenly broke through the air. This spaceship was not teleported, but flew directly from space to this place. The spaceship was a bit broken. It was the spaceship driven by Justina. When Isabel saw this spaceship, she breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "It's finally here." Nguyen looked serious, staring at the sky. His face changed slightly, and he clenched the axe blade in his hand. There was no doubt that the spaceship in the sky must be unfavorable to him. Not long after, a large number of spaceships began to pour into this planet. These spaceships came from different directions, and the appearance of the spaceships was also very different. Obviously, they came from different civilizations. The target and direction of all the spaceships turned out to be this area. In just a moment, 4 more spaceships appeared in the sky. The sudden appearance of the spaceships made Nguyen frown and look puzzled, but 2 of these 4 spaceships were known to Nguyen. Similarly, there were 2 that Isabel knew. The 2 just watched without moving, and suddenly a blue light flashed under the 4 spaceships, and one person came down one after another. Among them, the 2 spaceships near Isabel were Cannonbone and Justina of the Cheyenne organization, and the ones who exploded near Nguyen were Abercrombie and Run Yulang. The 4 people looked at each other when they appeared. Cannonbone was a 2.3 level civilization, and Abercrombie was also a 2.3 level civilization. Justina was a 1.9 level civilization, and Run Yulang was a 2.2 level civilization. From the perspective of civilization level, the DI organization and the Cheyenne organization were obviously stronger. But Abercrombie didn't care, and looked confident. After looking around, his eyes finally locked on Isabel below. "Where's Isadora?" Abercrombie said coldly. Isabel did not dare to neglect it and quickly replied, "In the earth core cage." Abercrombie nodded with satisfaction, looked at the metal ball in the earth core cage, and said, "Let her out, take the source, and leave here first." This sentence seemed to ignore the people around him. Under the arrogant look, it seemed that he had already controlled the overall situation. Isabel also bowed her head and replied, "Yes." As she said this, Isabel flew towards the metal ball, but before she could get close to the giant metal ball, Cannonbone suddenly flew and flashed to the front of the metal ball, just blocking Isabel's way. When she saw Cannonbone, Isabel paused and stopped in place. After sensing Cannonbone's civilization level, Isabel showed a cautious look. Cannonbone did not take the person in front of him into consideration, and turned his eyes to look at Abercrombie in the distance. This is the headquarters of the Earth-Bath organization, which is in charge of the entire Virgo galaxy cluster. Are you orcs crossing over to the super headquarters to challenge the Dulang civilization? Cannonbone said coldly. Chapter 566 The Girl. Abercrombie's face gradually became solemn, but he soon snorted and said, "That's just your headquarters. It has nothing to do with me. I must take the source body away." As he spoke, Abercrombie's figure gradually floated towards the other party and continued, "Let me take the source body away, and we can all live in peace. Otherwise." At this point, Abercrombie's face suddenly changed, and his face showed a sinister look. Cannonbone's eyes turned slightly, looked at the giant metal ball behind him, and then looked in the direction of Justina, thinking to himself, "If this goes on, I really can't explain to the Dulang people." Thinking of this, a golden light flashed in his right hand, and an axe suddenly appeared in his hand. This sick axe was extraordinary, completely different from the general axe blade. The blade of the axe was not a sharp weapon, but a piece of colorful stone. The stones were in the form of thin sheets, and they were spliced together to form the axe blade. This splicing was not compact, but just kept apart from each other under the control of some kind of energy. Simply put, the handle is a hole, while the axe blade is a piece of rock fragments, colorful and sparsely assembled into the shape of an axe, as if it would fall apart at any time. But the handle obviously has a special energy that binds these fragments together, so that their positions remain unchanged, like a hole. Holding the axe tightly in his hand, he glanced at the positions of Run Yulong and Nguyen, and said, "There is a source from the local galaxy group on that spaceship. You two rescue her, and I will deal with this side." As Cannonbone said this, his cold eyes immediately turned to Isabel in front of him. When Isabel saw the other person's eyes, her body suddenly tensed up, and her face was serious, but the next moment, Cannonbone moved, and in a flash, he approached Isabel's body, and at the same time, swung the axe in his hand to chop it down. Swish, swish, swish. The tentacles on Isabel's body quickly moved out, wrapping herself up like a huge palm. Bang! The blunt axe fell head on, and the shockwave of energy spread out from the intersection of the two. At the same time, Isabel's body shot down like a bullet. Boom. Dust and smoke rose from the ground, and Isabel's body had completely disappeared in the dust and smoke. While the Cannonbones were attacking, Abercrombie turned his eyes and looked at Run Yulong on the side. He moved his body and came to Run Yulong in a flash. The huge fist was aimed at Run Yulong and smashed directly down. Run Yulong seemed to be prepared. His body flashed and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already 100 meters away. He thought he had avoided the attack, but Run Yulong's eyes suddenly widened, and he thought to himself, "Not good." A crocodile tail covered with exoskeleton swung overhead on. In a hurry, Run Yulong had no time to think, and quickly raised his hands to block with the mace. Bang! There was a muffled sound. Run Yulong's body was directly knocked away. With a boom, the ground was covered with dust and smoke again, and Run Yulong also disappeared in it. But Run Yulong landed on both feet and leaned over. Even though a big hole was smashed out of the ground, Run Yulong did not fall to the ground. Instead, he looked up and stared at Abercrombie. "How is it possible? I obviously dodged his attack." Run Yulong gritted his teeth and his expression was extremely solemn. Abercrombie looked at him coldly, but before he could do anything, the Cannonbone in the distance suddenly flew over and chopped down again with the blunt axe in his hand. Abercrombie was not panicked at all. He did not move his body. The tail behind him suddenly swung again and went straight up. Boom. The tail and the blunt axe collided with each other, like two bombs colliding with each other. The rumble shook the earth and the energy spread out in a circle. The two retreated to a distance under this impact. As these people were fighting, Nguyen turned his eyes and looked directly at the spaceship behind Justina, thinking to himself, according to Lord Cannonbone, the source body should be inside. Thinking of this, his body moved, and he flew straight to Justina like a bouncing machine. Seeing the aggressive Nguyen, Justina was startled, and her figure flashed back and came to the top of the spaceship behind her. This quick flash avoided Nguyen's attack, and her eyes turned to take in the battlefield environment. She thought to herself, "It seems that they are coming for this source body. This level of battle is not suitable for me." As he said this, a blue light flashed under his feet, and his figure entered the spaceship. "Want to run?" Nguyen shouted, and the axe in his hand slashed fiercely. Swoosh! A wave of fire blades flew out. Before the spaceship could start, the fireblade wave had already arrived. In front of the powerful fireblade wave, the spaceship was instantly cut in half like a piece of tofu, and two objects flew out of it, one above and one below. The one flying upwards was Justina, and the one flying downwards was the girl in white. As soon as the two separated, the spaceship exploded with a boom, and the entire spaceship turned into a fireball, and the fragments of the explosion continued to fly out of the flames. The blown up spaceship turned into a fireball and fell from the sky, while the girl in white below fell to the ground with the cage. "Is it her?" Li Ming suddenly exclaimed. Under the flying dragon, Li Ming seemed to recognize the girl in white. He moved and shot out from the ground, flying straight to the barrier. But outside at this time, the damaged spaceship fell rapidly and hit the position of the girl in white. At this critical moment, a loud boom sound suddenly came, and the surface of the Earth's core cage suddenly burst open, as if some powerful impact force burst out from inside, breaking through the hard metal barrier directly. The huge sound was accompanied by the breath of energy, and the eyes of the people present looked over. But the next moment, a figure flashed, and suddenly appeared above the head of the girl in white, and at the same time a large golden umbrella was propped up above Li Ming's head. The wreckage of the fallen spacecraft was directly pushed away by the golden light, and fell to other places. Li Ming used the ability of two-stage teleportation to catch up, and rescue the girl in white. The desperate girl in white also looked up at Li Ming. At this time, everyone's eyes were no longer paying attention to the broken metal ball, but to Li Ming's position. Li Ming didn't care about the people around him at all. His eyes sank slightly, and he looked at the girl in white below. He smiled slightly, and his body slowly fell down. He came to the side of the iron cage, and raised his right hand gently. Bang! The iron cage exploded instantly and scattered everywhere. The girl in white was startled. She kept looking at Li Ming with her eyes. After looking carefully for a long time, she vaguely remembered something. I seem to have seen you somewhere, the girl said slowly. Li Ming smiled lightly, hesitated for a moment, and said, I didn't expect that you would actually enter the universe of advanced civilization. The girl in front of him was from Li Ming's home planet, Earth. When he was still in the Milky Way, the 3 satellite galaxies jointly invaded the Milky Way. As a permanent resident, Li Ming was ordered to go to the outer system to stop the invasion of the enemy. In the solar system, Li Ming successfully destroyed the enemy's transmission system, but he also fell to Earth. When touring his hometown, Li Ming saw a girl who was about to jump off the building to commit suicide, so he rescued her. When leaving, Li Ming gave her a nebula pill. But he didn't expect that this little girl would appear here. Nebula pills are energy replenishment consumables. Li Ming didn't know what happened to this girl. Since she appeared here, it must be related to the nebula pill. The most important thing is that this girl reached the first level of civilization so quickly, and her advancement speed was no less than Li Ming's. Li Ming remembered this memory very clearly, and the girl in front of him seemed to have thought of it as well. She immediately looked at Li Ming with joy, and shouted with a look of sudden realization, "It's really you." As she shouted, the girl in white actually flew over. Li Ming still had a smile on his face, but the other party suddenly jumped into his arms, which caught Li Ming off guard. After hugging Li Ming for a while, the girl in white stepped back, looked at Li Ming intently, and said, "I knew that I would see you again." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 567, The Wise-Eyed Phantom Dragon. Li Ming's eyes naturally saw through everything, but Li Ming never expected that he would have such a big impact on this girl. Looking at each other, the girl was still wearing a white dress, and her long hair, that was originally loose, was now turned into a ponytail. Her white bare feet stepped on the mud on the ground, and her big watery eyes were curved like a crescent moon, looking at Li Ming all the time. At this moment, Justina in the sky was the first to notice Li Ming below, and her eyes turned and showed surprise. Before, Li Ming was still a 1.9 level civilization, but now, it is already a 2nd level civilization. Of course, everyone present recognized Li Ming. When Li Ming killed 4 people from the Xianmu organization, the Xianmu organization had shared Li Ming with the DI organization. Among them, Run Yulang had seen Li Ming, so the members of the Xianmu organization and the DI organization present could recognize Li Ming. Abercrombie was different. Justina stared at Li Ming with her eyes, and looked up at the sky from time to time. She was surprised and said, "Is this the guy with the special gene you mentioned?" Justina nodded repeatedly, but didn't say much. Abercrombie's attention had shifted to Li Ming at this time. After a slight smile, he said, "Then today is really a special day. For the inheritance of our orc civilization, it is a huge gain." As soon as he said this, Li Ming immediately turned his eyes to Abercrombie, as if he heard what the other party said. Abercrombie also noticed Li Ming's sudden turn of eyes at this time, and his expression changed with it, showing a look of surprise. The girl in white was at a loss and looked up at Li Ming, only to see Li Ming's serious face. Then she followed Li Ming's eyes and noticed Abercrombie. Li Ming then retracted his gaze and looked at the girl in white in front of him. From his consciousness, Li Ming naturally knew this girl very well. After smiling slightly, he said, "Ruan Yingsu." The girl was startled when she heard this, and her eyes immediately widened a few points. She said in surprise, How do you know my name?" Li Ming raised his hand and touched the other's head and said, "I will send you home after I deal with them." Having said this, Li Ming suddenly turned around. His expression instantly became serious, looked at Justina above his head, then looked at Isabel in the distance, and finally turned his gaze to Abercrombie, snorted, and said, "Are you guys coming together? Or are you coming together?" When this sentence came out, everyone present was surprised, and the look in their eyes when they looked at Li Ming also showed a bit of anger and fear. Li Ming didn't care, but when he saw these people standing there motionless, he immediately showed a fierce look and said, "Since you don't do it, then I will do it." Abercrombie in the distance suddenly clenched his hands into fists, gritted his teeth, and angrily shouted, "You are so arrogant, then I will take you back and make you into a worm sauce body." As he said so, his body suddenly moved and flew straight towards Li Ming. Li Ming raised his head slightly, his eyes suddenly widened a little, and his eyeballs turned slightly like a sphere, turning into a triangular shape. Suddenly, there was a burst sound, and a stream of consciousness energy spread out. Li Ming whispered softly, "Phantom Dragon." Abercrombie, who was flying towards Li Ming, suddenly froze, and his body stopped in place, and his attacking posture stopped instantly. At this time, Abercrombie stood there motionless, and in the depths of his consciousness, Abercrombie was already in a desert. The wind and sand were blowing everywhere, and it seemed that there was nothing but sand. A few seconds later, the sand on the ground suddenly began to wriggle. The original yellow sand suddenly turned into a mouthful of sharp teeth of strange insects, and rushed towards Abercrombie frantically. Abercrombie was shocked. Just when he was about to do something, his body sank down little by little. The whole ground was already a sea of insects. Abercrombie was sinking, like he was in a vortex of insects. Ah! Ah! The shouting continued, but it had no effect at all. In reality, Abercrombie's body went limp, and fell directly from the air to the ground, like a corpse. After a thump sound, Abercrombie's body fell to the ground and stopped moving. The appearance of this scene startled everyone present. No one saw what Li Ming did, but with just such a look, a half-orc of level 2.3 civilization was completely motionless. Cannonbone had a brief fight with Abercrombie before, and knew the opponent's methods very well. Even if he dealt with it, he would not have a chance of winning. However, he was knocked down by Li Ming with a look, which showed how terrifying Li Ming was. Li Ming glanced at Abercrombie, who fell to the ground, and then turned his eyes to look at Justina above his head. Justina was startled by Li Ming's look, and her body leaned back. The muscles on her face trembled slightly, and she turned and ran away. Li Ming raised his hand with disdain, and a light Z sound was heard. A white beam of light shot out from Li Ming's palm and pierced Justina's body in an instant. The length of the beam was very precise. After piercing Justina's body, it immediately stopped extending. After a second, there was another light hum. The beam of light that pierced Justina's body suddenly branched and scattered, turning Justina into a hedgehog in an instant, but the thorns on her body were a white light. The beam of light disappeared directly. Li Ming's palm clenched lightly, and Justina's body turned into a corpse and fell directly to the ground. After doing this, Li Ming looked at the only half-orc on the field, Isabel. "I'll leave this person to you." While speaking, Li Ming's eyes were looking at Cannonbone. Cannonbone's face slightly changed, and he did not respond for a long time, as if he was still in the fear just now. Li Ming raised his hand, and a metal capsule flew out of his hand. Bang! The metal capsule flew into the air, and turned into a spaceship with a loud bang. Li Ming grabbed Ruan Yingsu behind him, smiled gently, and said, "Let's go." Ruan Yingsu looked at Li Ming infatuatedly, nodded vigorously, and smiled sweetly. Li Ming looked at the other party's playful face, and smiled slightly. The two of them turned into a blue light, and entered the spaceship at the same time. The spaceship then flashed a faint light, and disappeared on the spot with a bang, and was teleported away from this place. In the main cabin of the capsule spaceship, Li Ming was clicking on the operating table, while Ruan Yingsu behind him just looked at him quietly. While operating, Li Ming said, "With your current level of civilization, it is still too dangerous here. I'd better send you to this galaxy group first. You are a power civilization. I will choose a good power civilization planet for you in this galaxy group." Li Ming continued. When she heard that they were going to separate, Ruan Yingsu's face immediately sank slightly and said, "Can't I follow you? I keep advancing my civilization just to find you." Li Ming paused and stopped the operation in his hands. At this time, the operating table was full of nebulae woven by blue light. The Virgo galaxy cluster was still very far away from this galaxy group. Li Ming had to weave a better route and find a space-time spaceship. After hearing what Ruan Yingsu said, Li Ming hesitated for a moment, then slowly turned around and said, "Didn't I just say that you can't follow me at your current level of civilization?" Ruan Yingsu was stunned. Li Ming smiled lightly, looked at the other person solemnly, raised his hand, and touched the other person's head again, and said, "At least you have taken the first step. When you reach my level, you can follow me all the time." Ruan Yingsu bit her lip slightly, with an aggrieved expression on her face, and said, "Then if I can't reach this level, then I will never see you again." Li Ming smiled lightly, and said, "As long as you are obedient, we can meet anytime." Ruan Yingsu was surprised when she heard this. "Really?" Li Ming smiled and replied, "Of course it's true. That's great. I'll listen to you." Hearing the news that she could see Li Ming at any time, Ruan Yingsu was extremely happy like a well-behaved child. Chapter 568, Local Galaxy Group. From the console, the closest to Li Ming's current position is the Borals Galaxy. It would take a long time to cross this distance by capsule spaceship, so the space-time spaceship is naturally very important. After locking the Borals Galaxy, Li Ming directly locked the headquarters of this large galaxy, Binder Star. At this moment, a giant spaceship has arrived in the sky of the Black Planet. The appearance of the giant spaceship is similar to a gyroscope. In the main cabin at the center of the spaceship, Nuire is looking at the console. Under the solemn expression, the color changes extremely ugly. "How are you going to deal with it, Cannonbone?" Nuire said seriously. Cannonbone's expression was uncertain. After hesitating for a while, he said, "Li Ming has gotten rid of the constraints of our two organizations. With the current strength of our two organizations, it is impossible to compete with him. The Dulang people also push the matter of the Orc civilization to us. If we can't deal with Li Ming or the Orcs, then our two organizations will face great trouble." When Nuire heard about the Dulang people, her face suddenly became ugly. At this time, Cannonbone continued to say, "To be honest, with the current strength of our two organizations, we can neither solve Li Ming's problem nor the problem of the Orcs. The Dulang people have caused us a huge trouble." Nuire's face was extremely ugly. After hesitating for a while, she said, "According to you, we have no way out." Cannonbone looked solemn, and did not speak for a long time. After hesitating for a while, he sighed slightly and said, "Then I can only ask Lord Gil for advice." While speaking, the connection was disconnected. At the same time, Li Ming drove the spaceship to the space of Binder Star. After a glance, the spaceship disappeared with a buzzing sound. When the spaceship appeared again, it was already above the construction area. This was the location of Flowers, the commander-in-chief of the Borals Galaxy. With a flash of blue light, Li Ming's figure appeared just below the spaceship. With a glance and a move of his body, Li Ming's body disappeared directly on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on the top of a huge building. Li Ming just stood there motionless, his eyes slightly narrowed, and the surface of his body flashed with green light. A blue light flashed on the top of the building, and Flowers appeared. His face changed immediately when he saw Li Ming. Li Ming ignored him and searched for what he wanted through his consciousness. A few seconds later, Li Ming suddenly turned his head and looked at a place far away from the building area, whispering, "Over there." As he spoke, Li Ming was about to leave, but at this moment, Flowers suddenly shouted, "You are the person that Lord Run Yulang is chasing." Li Ming paused slightly, glanced at him with disdain, smiled slightly, and said, "I will visit the Cheyenne Mu organization and the DI organization in person, so you don't have to worry about this." While speaking, Li Ming's powerful aura suddenly hummed and released, and the breath was like the roar of a lion, which frightened the people who approached. It was as if a lion roared at a human, and he could only stay where he was and tremble. Although they were both second-level civilizations, the disparity in energy was huge. When Flowers came to his senses, Li Ming had already entered his spaceship, which turned around and flew away from the construction area. When they arrived above a flat land far from the construction area, Li Ming turned around and looked at Ruan Yingsu, smiled slightly, and said, "Let's go." Ruan Yingsu was excited, jumped to Li Ming's side, and hugged Li Ming's arm. Li Ming smiled but frowned. Li Ming didn't want to keep such a clingy girl around. It was not that Li Ming didn't like her. After all, the road to civilization advancement was extremely dangerous, and it would not work without a little strength. With a flash of blue light, Li Ming and Ruan Yingsu fell to the ground together. At this time, Li Ming waved his right hand, and a green light shot out from his palm, sinking into the ground and disappearing. Deep under the feet of the two, a huge underground spaceship was parked. The green light phantom was Li Ming's flying dragon. After a flash, it entered an elliptical spaceship. Under Filang's control, the oval-shaped spaceship suddenly flashed with light, indicating that it had been activated and started. Then, it disappeared in the dark underground with a buzz. A silver oval-shaped spaceship appeared in the sky above Li Ming's head with a buzz. It was the space-time spaceship. Li Ming grabbed Ruan Yingsu, jumped into the sky, and turned into a beam of blue light and shot into the oval-shaped spaceship. As soon as the two entered, the space-time spaceship moved slightly and flew away. Filang controlled the space-time spaceship on behalf of Li Ming, and the target was the local galaxy group. Li Ming and Ruan Yingsu sat face to face. Ruan Yingsu held her chin with her two small hands, her eyes wide open, staring at Li Ming blankly, as if she was looking at some treasure. Li Ming had a calm face, and when he flipped his right hand, a ball of blue light appeared in his hand. As soon as she saw the light ball, Ruan Yingsu paused and asked curiously, "What is this?" Li Ming smiled and said, "This is the key to the time and space castle. I will give it to you now. This thing can help you avoid crisis at critical moments. At the same time, we may meet here." Ruan Yingsu sat up straight after hearing this. As a power civilization, she seemed to have never heard of this thing. She asked in surprise, "There is such a thing?" Li Ming smiled and said nothing. He stretched out his right hand and said, "Of course." Ruan Yingsu smiled and stretched out her hands to hold the blue sphere in her hands, and slowly observed it in front of her eyes. "You said that I can see you often. Is this the thing?" Ruan Yingsu asked. Li Ming nodded gently and said nothing. Ruan Yingsu then clasped her hands happily and put away the light ball. Seeing this, Li Ming stretched out his hand again, and a star bag appeared in his palm. "The things here will be of some help to you in the future to advance to civilization. You should take it first," Li Ming continued. Ruan Yingsu happily extended her hand to take the star bag, smiled threateningly, but her big eyes immediately looked at Li Ming and said, "You saved my life and treated me so well, but I don't know your name yet." Li Ming snorted slightly and smiled. "My name is Li Ming." Li Ming. Ruan Yingsu silently remembered it and recited it silently, but didn't say much. At this moment, a large white and blue vortex appeared in front of the spaceship. The giant vortex was like a space-time crack, and the spaceship entered it little by little. Buzz. A loud noise was heard, and the spaceship entering the vortex was like entering a space-time tunnel. The 7-color light shuttled around the spaceship. In just a blink of an eye, the spaceship had arrived in another huge galaxy group. Li Ming had a space map of this galaxy group. As soon as the spaceship arrived, a dazzling nebula appeared on the operating table, and various galaxies and planets were distributed everywhere. Even though he had only arrived at this galaxy group, Li Ming suddenly felt a long-lost feeling. When Li Ming came back here, he first thought of the Cheyenne Guard in the Andromeda Galaxy. There were Li Ming's old friends there, and it was more habitable. With Li Ming's knowledge of that place, it was natural to put Ruan Yingsu there. Thinking of this, he raised his hand and tapped the operating table lightly, locking the target area, the Andromeda Galaxy. When Li Ming left, he killed the Queen of the Andromeda Galaxy. Li Ming had no way of knowing what the situation of the Andromeda Galaxy was now. Moreover, not long ago, this galaxy group was attacked by the Orc civilization, and the current situation was unpredictable. The space-time spaceship is a high-end technology of the second-level civilization, which creates convenient conditions for the civilization of this level to travel in the universe. At the same time, the ordinary transmission distance of the space-time spaceship is farther than that of ordinary spaceships. Entering the Andromeda galaxy, Li Ming's spaceship directly locked the Cheyenne starfield. From the outer system to the middle system or the inner system, it is necessary to pass the critical point. Li Ming chose the Irema critical point. You can directly enter the Cheyenne starfield from here. As you approach the Irema critical point, Li Ming's spaceship also received the entry authentication information. Li Ming has no confidence in the current authentication. After a light snort, he shuttled through directly. Chapter 569. Leave it to me. Changsheng Galaxy, Meridian Star, the headquarters of the Cheyenne Guard. Li Ming's spaceship went directly here. As soon as he arrived at Meridian space, Li Ming was stunned. He did not continue to teleport, but just stood at the operating table in a daze. At this time, the surface of the planet was in flames. Even in outer space, you can see the surface of the planet and the debris after the war. What's wrong? Brother Li Ming? Li Ming waved his hand and whispered, "It's okay." Looking at the planet in front of him, Li Ming frowned and thought to himself, the attack of the Orcs has ended long ago, and there are not many other forces that can threaten the Cheyenne Guard. What's going on with this war? Whispering in his mouth, Li Ming raised his hand and determined the target of entering the planet. At this time, on the surface of Meridian planet, two huge troops were attacking each other. The ground troops were all mechanical troops, and there were many aircraft in the air that launched attacks on each other. Combat aircraft are different from ordinary aircraft. Not only are they extremely fast in flight speed, but they are also more maneuverable and have stronger attack capabilities. They are oval-shaped flying saucers, flat in shape, and not large in size. The aircrafts of both sides were roughly the same. Red and blue lasers were constantly shooting back and forth, colliding with each other like raindrops. On the ground, there were either alien soldiers holding weapons or robots or chariots. The high-density attacks were divided into multiple battlefields, distributed all over the world of Meridian. Li Ming's space-time spaceship quickly locked onto the target, not the attack target, but the area of the Cheyenne Guard. He did not use the transmission ability and flew directly from high altitude. Facing the strange spaceship driven by Li Ming, the ground troops sent a message. The message was the identity authentication information. Li Ming looked at it intently and simply replied with two words, "Li Ming." After more than 10 seconds, the console immediately received a reply to the message. Landing was allowed. The spaceship slowly fell into the low altitude and came to the top of a building area. This was not a war zone, but it was close to the war in front. The buildings on the ground were of various types, without a strong sense of science fiction, just like a residential area. Two people were standing on the top of one of the tall buildings. The tall building was square and had a huge roof area, like a platform that could accommodate multiple aircraft. The people on the rooftop were Jizin and Guoji. A blue light flashed, and a blue laser beam shot to the rooftop. Then the light faded, and Li Ming and Ruan Yingsu appeared. When he saw that it was really Li Ming, Guoji immediately laughed a few times, walked up quickly, and patted Li Ming on the shoulder, saying, "I never thought that we would meet again." Li Ming smiled slightly and said, "Brother Guoji, you are joking. It is inevitable that we will meet. Let's go inside and talk first." As he said this, Guoji was already a little impatient to take Li Ming into the building. Li Ming naturally smiled happily and followed quickly. In a separate room inside the building area, Guoji and Li Ming sat opposite each other, while Jizin and Ruan Yingsu sat aside. Guoji's eyes kept looking at Li Ming, and occasionally glanced at Ruan Yingsu beside Li Ming. After nodding with satisfaction, he smiled slightly. "I really didn't expect that. It hasn't been long since we separated, and you've already reached the second level civilization." Sensing Li Ming's level of civilization, Guoji couldn't help but choke and said in surprise. But when he saw Ruan Yingsu beside Li Ming, he immediately showed doubts. "Who is?" Li Ming chuckled, and when he was about to say something, Guoji suddenly raised his hand, laughed twice, and replied, "You don't have to say it, I understand. I understand." Ikuji's thoughts were all under Li Ming's wise eyes. After looking at Ruan Yingsu beside him, Li Ming did not explain much, but his face was slightly solemn, and said, "To be honest, brother Ikuji, I returned to the Cheyenne Star region this time, and I do have something to find you." Ikuji replied without hesitation, "If you have something to say, just say it. If you hadn't taken action last time, the Cheyenne Guard would have been besieged by many forces, and who knows what would have happened." Li Ming smiled lightly. He still remembered the last incident. Killing Queen Yuz and 2 people from the Lahu civilization had already shocked other forces. It's like this. This person is called Ruan Yingsu. She is from the same home planet as me. She also broke through many restrictions to reach the current level of civilization. She is a power civilization. Although there is room for improvement, she still needs to find a proper place to arrange it. So I thought of you," Li Ming said slowly. Ikuji nodded slightly, but his face looked a little ugly. He looked at Ruan Yingsu, then looked at Jizin beside him. After hesitating for a while, he sighed slightly and said, "This matter is not difficult, and there is no problem, but the situation in the Cheyenne Star region is worrying now. I'm afraid," Ikuji said with a sad face. Although Ikuji did not directly say the current situation, Li Ming's wisdom had already seen everything when they met, but Li Ming did not show it obviously. After all, Li Ming still respected Ikuji, the big brother. Even though Li Ming's civilization level was higher than his opponents, he was naturally in awe of Ikuji in terms of their relationship. When the orcs attacked the local galaxy, several important core members of the Cheyenne Guard were taken away as source bodies. Not only the Cheyenne Guard, but also many people in the Milky Way in the Triangulum galaxy were taken away as source bodies. The entire local galaxy suffered heavy losses, which Li Ming could see with his wisdom. I understand what Brother Ikuji wants to say. If Brother Ikuji agrees to let Ruan Yingsu join the Cheyenne Star region, then I will be relieved. I'm still a little worried about handing her over to other places. Li Ming said, as if nothing had happened. Seeing Li Ming's expression, Ikuji frowned, but before he could explain anything, Jizin on the side said, "Brother Li Ming, you may have misunderstood Brother Ikuji's meaning. There is no problem in taking in Ruan Yingsu, but at present Meredith Star." Before Jizin finished speaking, Li Ming raised his hand to stop the other party from continuing. Li Ming stood up slowly and said, "I'll leave Ruan Yingsu to Brother Ikuji." Li Ming even bowed at this point. Ikuji was a little overwhelmed. Meredith was in the most dangerous moment now. There was nothing wrong with Li Ming entrusting her to him, but there was also a great risk. Ikuji rolled his eyes left and right, and suddenly stood up, saying in a hard voice, "Okay, leave it to me." Li Ming nodded with satisfaction and said, "This is my brother Ikuji." As he said this, Li Ming slowly turned around, took only 2 steps and stopped, and said without looking back, "Brother Ikuji, don't worry, the Cheyenne Guard is still the same Cheyenne Guard. Not everyone can come in at will. Let the troops withdraw first. The rest, leave it to me." As soon as the voice fell, Li Ming's figure left directly. As a second level civilization, coupled with what Li Ming just said, Ikuji immediately understood something, but he just stared at it and said nothing. There are 3 large-scale battlefields on the entire Meridian planet. After Li Ming left the construction area, he waved his right arm to the sky, and 5 beams of light shot out. They were Li Ming's 5 pet beasts. On the battlefield, you guys deal with it. I'm going to go directly to their headquarters. After saying this, Li Ming moved and flew away. The 5 pet beasts then turned into 3 beams of light and flew in 3 directions. The first battlefield was the battlefield closest to the construction area, where Ikuji was located. At this time, the Cheyenne troops had gradually withdrawn, while the opposing troops continued to withdraw. Just as the opponent was approaching, a grey light suddenly fell from the sky. As soon as the grey light landed, it made a muffled sound of bang, and turned into a ball of mist and quickly dispersed. The mist spread quickly, from the high sky to the entire front line, all of which were covered. Finally, I can stretch my muscles. The other world is turbid. Let's learn about it. A huge voice emanated from the mist, and at the same time, a large number of troops flew out of the mist. These troops are divided into sky and ground. In the sky are various flying beasts, and on the ground are monsters of various sizes. These monsters are covered with smoke on the surface and black on the inside. They have hideous faces, are extremely ferocious, and are extremely violent. Chapter 570, The Rise of the Star Raiders. The fog continued to spread, and the beasts also began to attack, suppressing the opposing troops in numbers. The aliens who were originally attacking were also shocked, because their opponents were no longer regular troops, but beasts without rules. The most important thing was that these beasts were like demons from hell, extremely weird. The second battlefield was Walker and the magic horned golden fungus beast. Compared with the turbid side, Walker was much more relaxed. The opposite side was a neat ground force, and the sky was full of flying vehicles flying back and forth. A large area of troops was advancing in an orderly manner like ants. But Walker had a calm face, and was moving forward alone to face this huge army. What's going on? Walker glanced behind him. A golden soft body suddenly stood up and said, as for the minions, of course, just leave them to me. It's not worth your effort. Walker had no interest in the soldiers and machines in front of him. After disdainfully glancing at the front, he whispered, let's fight quickly and decisively. We still have to rush to meet the master. Understood. The golden fungus beast replied immediately. A few seconds later, the golden fungus beast suddenly flashed with light, as if it had activated some ability, and the next moment, the spaceship in the sky suddenly turned around and started attacking the troops on the ground. At the same time, the troops on the ground also began to kill each other. The two low-altitude troops gave up their original attack direction and target, and instantly fought each other. This kind of fight was completely indiscriminate killing, regardless of enemy or friend, and it was a crazy attack throughout. The fire was everywhere, and the rumbling sound continued. The fire was reflected in Walker's eyes, and the mirror-like eyes seemed to be playing this picture. Walker stood coldly in place, motionless. Whether it was the turbid battlefield or Walker's battlefield, it would be relatively easier, while Moore's side was relatively chaotic. In the third battlefield, only the scenes of shooting and explosions were seen, and the ears kept hearing the rumbling explosions. Compared with these movements, there were more sounds of Moore's excited screams. Riding on the fox beast, the body shape changed everywhere, and the attack beams came one after another. Brother Moore, let's finish it quickly, the fox beast said impatiently. Moore was puzzled, snorted coldly, and scolded, why? I haven't had enough fun yet. The fox beast helplessly glanced at the excited Moore on his body, and said again, aren't you afraid that the master will be angry? After saying this, Moore seemed to think of something, and hesitated. After hesitating for a while, he said helplessly, well, okay. The fox beast heard this, and his face immediately became solemn, and his eyes also looked at the enemy troops in front of him. His figure soared into the sky, and came to the sky. The whole body turned into white feathers, and then the ark jumped, and made a sizzling sound. The aircraft in the air continued to launch lasers to attack Moore, but those attacks were resolved by the ark before they got close. The arc on the surface of the fox beast became stronger and stronger, and the crackling sound was endless. The whole body was like the sun in the sky, extremely bright. At this time, any aircraft that approached would be directly destroyed by the arc. A few seconds later, the fox beast suddenly roared, and in an instant, the arc expanded and spread out. The electric light shone in all directions like the sun, and the jumping arc was like a jumping line. Once it hit a target, it would immediately jump to another target, lighting up the enemy's metal as it jumped back and forth. Every target touched by the arc would be lit up with the flash of electric light, just like being electrocuted, and the arc would use this as a springboard to go directly to the next target. It was like a large net that continued to spread, spreading rapidly. In just a moment, the sky and ground of the entire area were controlled by the power grid, and the power grid continued to expand. Every target hit would be paralyzed and fall to the ground under the energy of the arc, and would directly lose the ability to attack. 3 major battlefields, 5 pet beasts, effortless resolved the battle. At this moment, Li Ming came to the sky above a mountain forest. A huge air base had appeared in front of him. This air base was in the shape of a disc, but it was extremely heavy, like a pancake. The spaceship was huge, tens of kilometers long, with aircraft flying around on its surface. The smaller aircraft were like bees flying around a nest. Right below the giant spaceship, there were many ground troops, densely packed and looking quite numerous. Li Ming just watched from a distance, snorted with disdain, then slowly raised his right hand, with white light flashing in his palm. Then he swung it vigorously. Swoosh! A beam of white light shot out, which was Li Ming's light blade. As soon as he shot it out, the length exceeded the diameter of the spaceship. As Li Ming swung it downward, it was like a sword slashing down. Bang! The round spaceship was split into two, cut right in the middle, just like a cake being neatly split into two halves. After the light blade cut it, it immediately dissipated and disappeared. At this time, the cut giant spaceship began to fall to the ground, and explosions of different sizes continued to be heard from the cut surface, with flames everywhere. Small aircraft began to fly away quickly, and the ground troops also prepared to retreat in a panic. But at this moment, two figures shot out of the spaceship and rushed towards Li Ming. The two people looked ferocious and aggressive, but as they slowly approached Li Ming, their speed became slower and slower, and their faces gradually became ugly. Second level civilization? One of the aliens said in astonishment, his mouth slightly wide open, his eyes wide open. His body suddenly stopped. The alien who was traveling with him was also stunned and stood there. His anger and momentum just now disappeared. Li Ming looked at the two people calmly, snorted lightly, and said, I was wondering which force still has the ability to attack the Cheyenne Star region. It turned out to be the Great Demon Star Sweeping Group. With his wise eyes, Li Ming had already seen what he wanted, and then his figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Seeing that Li Ming suddenly disappeared, the two people were suddenly startled and opened their eyes wide, but when they reacted, Li Ming had already come behind them. With a wave of his right hand, a green shadow hand flew out. The shadow's hand split into two in the air, grabbing the heads of the two people respectively, and then pulled back violently, and the souls of the two people were extracted from their bodies. The bodies of the two people turned into corpses and fell to the ground, while the two souls were directly absorbed by the shadow. The two people were high-level members of the Great Demon Star Plunder Group, and they were ordered to attack the Cheyenne Star region. However, in front of Li Ming, the third interval of the first level civilization was not worth mentioning, and he could destroy it with a wave of his hand. By obtaining the souls of the two people, he naturally obtained more information. He looked at the destroyed giant spaceship base with disdain, and flew back in the direction of return. During the flight, 5 beams of light also approached Li Ming. There were 5 pet beasts. Li Ming did not care, because Li Ming's mind was now thinking about the Great Demon Star Plunder Group. According to the information Li Ming just obtained, during the attack of the Orcs, only the strength of the Great Demon Star Plunder Group was completely preserved. In short, the Orcs only attacked the traditional civilized planets, and did not attack the Star Plunder Group. After the Orcs attack ended, the Star Plundering Groups in various places began to stir, and the Great Demon Star Plundering Group directly launched a Star Plundering plan. At this time, the entire local galaxy group had been seriously injured, and there were very few who could fight against the Great Demon Star Plundering Group. After all, this Star Plundering Group was a huge organization with considerable power. Of course, for a second-level civilization, it was just an ordinary force. But such a force continued to flourish during this period, and many people joined the Great Demon Star Plundering Group, making this Star Plundering Group ambitious, and intending to annex more large galaxies. This information made Li Ming snort with disdain, and whispered, the Great Demon Star Plundering Group made such a big move, but the Cheyenne organization didn't care about it. It's also, the current Cheyenne organization is probably too busy to take care of these. Then, let me do it for you. After all, any force that threatens the Cheyenne Guard should not exist. Thinking of this, Li Ming had already come to the bottom of his space-time spaceship. His eyes turned to the top of a building not far away. Ruan Yingsu and Guoji stood there looking at this place, and Li Ming also took a look, and then flashed into the spaceship. The spaceship started, and turned around to leave. Chapter 571. Zicili Headquarters. The Great Demon Realm Star Sweeping Group is located in the satellite galaxy of the Andromeda Galaxy. A star called Zicili is exactly where Li Ming is going. After locking the position, the spaceship began to transmit to the target. Crossing the large galaxy and passing the critical point, Li Ming let the flying dragon control these, and he sat cross-legged on the side and began to practice. In the second level civilization, Li Ming can still improve many abilities. At this level of civilization, he can control 1/3 of the power of the artifact. For practicing the artifact, the most important thing is Li Ming's development of other abilities. No matter which ability, Li Ming must make it perfect and extreme as the civilization level increases. Among them, Hingyan Shang, Li Ming can further develop it. In Hingyan Shang, Li Ming reopened a space, the storage space. This space seems to have opened up a new world. At the same time, Li Ming also faces a problem. The space is the same as the Beastman space and the Zerg space, all from Hingyan Shang. But after reaching the second level civilization, Li Ming made a surprising discovery. The 3 spaces are like 3 worlds, and their capacity and volume are extremely large, like 3 drawers. But there are many independent spaces in the drawers, and Li Ming can only use a small part of them. Simply put, the Beastman space is huge, but that is only for Li Ming. The hugeness of it may be 1% or even 1,000th of what Li Ming saw. Li Ming cannot judge how big its total volume is, just like the universe. If the Beastman space is just a planet, then the other extra vast places need Li Ming to slowly explore. After entering the second level civilization, Li Ming reopened the storage space, but it is still just the tip of the iceberg of Hingyan Shang. However, with Li Ming's current civilization level and cognition, this is already the limit of what Li Ming can discover. Although it is only the tip of the iceberg of Hingyan Shang, its space is enough for Li Ming to use it for all purposes. In addition to the 3 spaces, Li Ming also discovered the Liuan wings of Hingyan Shang's flying ability, but after reaching the second level civilization, the Liuan wings also advanced to Xingyan wings. Space, flying, 2 major abilities were discovered by Li Ming. Of course, there is also a huge ability that is also a new discovery after the second level civilization, Shanhei Xingyan Shield. Shanhei Hingyan Shang is a relic of the geocentric civilization. There is no breath of artifacts or magic weapons in it, but its own abilities still have many places waiting to be discovered, which is really wonderful. While gaining abilities, Li Ming also became more and more interested in the inner Earth civilization. The console was beeping, and Li Ming had arrived at his destination, Zixikali Star, the headquarters of the Great Demon Realm Star Plunder Group. I don't know how much time has passed, but when I saw the blurry planet in front of me, Li Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Zixikali Star is surrounded by fog, like a blurry planet. There is little visible ground on the planet, and there is little information that can be seen by the eyes. If only a strange alien arrived here, it would be impossible to lock the exact target. Li Ming absorbed the consciousness of the 2 high-level members of the Great Demon Realm Star Plunder Group. In this consciousness, there is the headquarters information of the Star Plunder Group. Li Ming only thought about it and found the target he wanted. He raised his hand and lightly tapped on the console, and an area was immediately locked. The spacecraft then hummed and disappeared on the spot. When the spacecraft reappeared, it was already above a building. "That's it," he said, with a faint smile on his lips. At the same time, the green light flashed on his body, and Li Ming used the ability of Pan Long to hide his own energy. To wipe out this star-grabbing group in one fell swoop, Li Ming still needs some means. While hiding his energy, Li Ming's body also twisted and changed, becoming another strange alien. At the bottom of the spacecraft, a blue light flashed, and a beam of blue aurora went straight to the ground. The sky here is extremely dark. Although it is in the star system, there is not much visible light. In the sky, there are thick cumulus clouds all year round, covering the sky and the sun, and it is rainy all year round. It is under this environment that this place has become dark and humid, and it is not easy to be discovered. The buildings in the construction area are all brown. They are not rock or metal structures, but some kind of biological structure. The surface looks very smooth, as if there is a layer of oil. In fact, it is the drizzle in the sky. The special building materials are born for the climate here. The blue beam fell on the top of the pointed building, and Li Ming's figure flashed out. Looking around, there was silence all around. There was nothing else except darkness, not even a single person. But a moment later, a small aircraft suddenly rushed towards Li Ming in the rain, and slowly stopped a few dozen meters away from Li Ming. The hatch opened, and a guy in a black cloak slowly stood up. "Are you here to join the Great Demon Star Sweeping Group?" This person who was in the second interval of the first level civilization, said so as soon as he saw Li Ming. Li Ming glanced at him with disdain, but still replied, yes. The person looked Li Ming up and down, hesitated for a moment, and replied, come with me. As soon as he finished speaking, the person sat back in the aircraft, and the hatch closed. The aircraft turned, and slowly flew away. Li Ming moved and followed behind. From the other party's consciousness, Li Ming learned that the current Great Demon Star Sweeping Group often has aliens who come to join it, but its gradually growing and expanding ambitions are also attracting the attention of the Shenmue organization bit by bit. So in order to ensure that they have done a deeper level of hiding, following the aircraft, Li Ming came to a huge mountain. This mountain was unusual, far away from the construction area. The surface material was the same as the construction area, brown, and looked very smooth. At the foot of the mountain, a light hole slowly emerged. The light hole was not in the form of a vortex, but like a light curtain. The aircraft in front of him plunged into it and disappeared. Li Ming watched from a distance, hesitated for a moment, and then entered it. As soon as he passed through the light hole, a huge underground world appeared in front of him, with bright lights, various huge aircraft, and aliens walking around. It seemed as if he had come to another world. The aircraft in front of Li Ming stopped at a place. The hatch opened, and an alien from the second interval of the first level civilization came down. After looking at Li Ming, he shook his head and said, this way. After that, the alien walked into the depths, and Li Ming followed behind him without saying a word. Next to a huge round stone pillar, the alien in front of him stopped, raised his hand, and lightly touched it. The surface of the stone pillar flashed blue light, and the vertical blue light door had emerged. The alien in front entered directly, and Li Ming followed closely. After passing through the door, he came to a passage. At the end of the passage, there were several soldiers. At the same time, an alien from the third zone of the first level civilization sat at the entrance of the passage and looked at everyone passing by with contempt. There were two aliens in front of Li Ming. Each of them paused in front of the alien from the third zone, as if accepting the other's inspection. The first person passed smoothly and then entered the depths. The second person was immediately inspected. During the inspection, the alien from the third zone suddenly changed his face, looked at the other person fiercely, and made a sound of howl. Then he said in a stern voice, catch him. Several soldiers next to him immediately surrounded him and prepared to take action. This person seemed to realize that something was wrong. He waved his arm, took out a weapon, and knocked down the two soldiers with a swing. At the same time, he turned around and ran towards Li Ming. But before he ran to Li Ming, the sitting alien suddenly moved and came to this person. Your intentions are all under my control. You want to escape. It's not that easy. While speaking, the alien suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the other person's neck. Dishonest guys, you are not welcome here. As he said this, he suddenly pinched his hand hard, and there was a slight crunch sound. The alien who intended to escape collapsed to the ground and did not move. Li Ming saw all this. With this pair of wise eyes, Li Ming had mastered the cause of all the things. The alien who killed people in the third zone was named Lenora. He was a spiritual civilization. His main responsibility was to detect the authenticity of the people who came to join him, because not all those who came to join him really wanted to join the Great Demon Realm Star Raiders. Chapter 572 High Explosive Capsule. Lenora looked at the corpses at her feet, wiped her hands, and said without looking back, pack up the corpses, let's stop here today. With that, Lenora walked inside. The alien who had been beside Li Ming then looked at Li Ming, hesitated for a moment, and said, Lord Lenora, this is the last one today, please help me check it. Lenora paused, turned around slowly, and looked at Li Ming coldly. Li Ming was also looking at him at this time. After looking at each other, Lenora snorted disdainfully and said, I said it's over. Are you disobeying my orders? The alien was shocked and quickly replied, no, 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 I dare not. Lenora turned around with satisfaction and continued to walk deeper. Wait, Li Ming suddenly said, and took a step forward at the same time. He raised his head slightly, and his eyes flashed with cold light, as if it was a poisonous light that captured people's hearts. Just one look would make people shudder. HMM. Lenora's face showed a strange color, and then she turned to look at Li Ming. Li Ming looked at her coldly, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and said, "This job doesn't seem to be suitable for you, Lenora." As soon as the voice fell, Li Ming suddenly raised his right hand, and a white beam of light shot out from his hand. The beam of light flashed, like a flashlight, that was suddenly turned on, and pierced Lenora's body. There was a muffled sound of bang, and the beam of light scattered all at once, and then flashed and disappeared again. With a thump, Lenora fell directly to the ground, and the alien standing next to him twitched his facial muscles slightly, and looked at Li Ming with a horrified expression. Li Ming glanced at the other person lightly, and the eyeballs in his eyes suddenly turned into triangles. But a powerful force spread out, and the alien felt a sharp pain in his head, and instantly lost consciousness. At this time, Li Ming looked into the depths and walked in. At the end of the passage, he came to a hall. The hall was relatively spacious and the lights were unusually bright. 3 portals appeared in front of Li Ming. He turned his eyes, and saw the portal on the left. He whispered, "The conference room should be here." As he spoke, Li Ming walked over quickly. With a flash of light, Li Ming came to a huge concave hall. The whole hall was like a big bowl, with a round table at the bottom. At this time, a person was standing in the round table. This person was wearing a purple robe. Under his ferocious face, he kept waving his arms and chattering, "The entire Andromeda galaxy is ours, and even the entire local galaxy group. The future is ours. Welcome to join us. It is because of your arrival that the Great Demon Realm Star Sweeping Group has gradually become stronger. Now, the balance of the future is tilting towards us." So, the alien was talking to himself, but Li Ming couldn't listen anymore. With a glance, Li Ming saw all the aliens here. Most of these people were recruited, or came here on their own, and some were the backbone members of the Star Sweeping Group. This was a large meeting. It was impossible for a new member like Li Ming to enter such a meeting, but Li Ming, who had already entered, naturally had to do something. Li Ming slowly took out a metal capsule and put it in his hand. Just when he was about to do something, a soldier suddenly came over. "What are you doing? Who let you in? Get out." The soldier was aggressive and said viciously as soon as he opened his mouth. Li Ming paused after hearing this, smiled slightly, and said, "I'm here to deliver something. Please give this thing to the person on the stage." While speaking, Li Ming handed over the capsule in his hand. The soldier frowned, looked at Li Ming, and then looked at the thing Li Ming gave. After hesitating for a while, he took the thing in his hand and smiled slightly. "You are sensible. Let's go." Li Ming didn't care, looked at the person who was still giving a speech, and then turned and left. When he came to the hall outside, Li Ming took out another metal capsule, then threw it in the hall. He glanced coldly at the portal just now, and went straight to the passage. From the portal of the passage to the hall at the top, Li Ming placed a metal capsule again, and then he went straight to the blue barrier. His figure flashed, and when Li Ming appeared, he was already in the air outside. Beside the mountain, drizzle continued to fall. Li Ming looked back at the blue light curtain barrier, and moved his figure, and went straight to his spaceship. The metal capsule that Li Ming threw inside was the high explosive capsule that Li Ming got from the supply star in the Virgo galaxy cluster. Its explosive power is naturally self-evident. After all, it is a weapon developed by a second-level civilization, which is used to deal with the beasts and the Zerg. A certain number of second-level civilizations are allowed to exist in the large galaxies of the Virgo galaxy cluster, and the natural science and technology will be very mature. However, there is no second-level civilization in this galaxy group except the Cheyenne organization, so this kind of high-tech bomb is naturally rare. Li Ming came to the bottom of his spaceship, moved his figure, turned into blue light, and entered the spaceship. Li Ming just entered it. The ground below suddenly boomed. With a sound, the entire building area collapsed instantly, and flames spurted out from it, like a volcanic eruption. A few seconds later, boom, boom. There were 2 more loud noises, and the previous mountain collapsed directly, and the flames that had originally sprayed from the earth spurted out again. It was as if some huge energy was making the earth churn up. The hellish sea of fire kept rolling on the operating table, the high temperature was radiating, and the earth collapsed. The power of the high explosive capsule was no less than the high energy laser of the second level civilization spacecraft. Li Ming almost died because of the high energy laser on the frozen planet. These guys who did not have a second level civilization naturally found it difficult to survive in this environment. Even if there were a few survivors, they would no longer pose a threat to the Cheyenne Guard. Watching with both eyes, he raised his right hand a little, and a blue light flashed on the operating table. Then the spacecraft made a hum sound and disappeared on the spot. Back in space, Li Ming looked at the console in front of him and whispered, "In the entire galaxy group, the only organization that can threaten the Cheyenne Guard is the Cheyenne Mu organization. In this case, we should go to the headquarters of the Cheyenne Mu organization to take a look." As he said this, Li Ming raised his hand and locked the location of a planet, Fish Star. The headquarters of the Cheyenne Mu organization and the DI organization are relatively mysterious. Except for the two organizations and the upper echelons of the two organizations, no outsiders know about it. Even if you enter the Black Planet, you will enter it by mistake. But Fish Star is different. This is the information obtained by Li Ming's brain. As the leader of the Cheyenne Mu organization, the information in his brain is naturally not wrong. Li Ming's trip is to explore the truth. Of course, there is another reason. That is, Li Ming needs to have a deep understanding of this organization. As far as Li Ming's current cognition is concerned, Li Ming has not seen a large number of clustered second-level civilizations. This is very strange, because when Li Ming entered the first-level civilization, he quickly integrated into the world of the first-level civilization, and could see the first-level civilization everywhere. But after entering the second-level civilization, Li Ming could only meet a handful of second-level civilizations. In addition to the Cheyenne Mu organization, there are the commanders of the 5 major galaxies in the Virgo galaxy cluster. This is all the second-level civilization that Li Ming has seen. Of course, Li Ming also saw 2 in the Orc civilization, but obviously that is not what Li Ming wants. Li Ming firmly believes that the second-level civilization must have its own civilized world. What Li Ming has to do is to enter this world and integrate into it. Only in this way can he continue to advance. The Cheyenne Mu organization and the DI organization are the breakthroughs that Li Ming is looking for. So this is also one of the reasons why Li Ming went to the headquarters of the Cheyenne Mu organization. The location of Fish Star is relatively remote, located at the edge of the local galaxy group, which requires crossing more large galaxies to reach. After setting the route, Li Ming sat down in the main cabin. It has become Li Ming's habit to practice star nationality during this time. At this moment, in the distance in Taurus Galaxy Cluster, on the top of a mountain on the big star, 2 aliens are talking. These 2 aliens have a special appearance and are the Orc civilization. One of them had a bunch of bat wings on his back, and the others had brown bodies, which were very similar to the fairy bats in the beast tribe. The only difference was that the fairy bats were pure beasts and black in color, but this man was half orc and brown in color. Chapter 573, Ticket to the Secondary Civilization World. Nigel, what should we do now? A guy with a red upper body and a white and purple baker's lower body said with some concern. The red body is somewhat similar to humans, with pointed ears and a big mouth, ice crystal hair, and a gentle voice like a lady. The bat-winged half-orc named Nicole looked into the distance with his eyes, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Fidelia, the best genes must be obtained no matter what. This is extremely important to us. It can quickly advance our race continuation plan. When the time is right, I will make a decision." The red body Fidelia smiled softly and replied, "If you say so, I know what to do." As soon as the voice fell, the red body slowly retracted into the baker, and the baker that was originally open immediately closed, but as soon as the baker closed, it turned into nothingness and disappeared on the spot. At the edge of this galaxy group, a planet flashing dark red light was slowly moving in the universe, and a spaceship was approaching this planet little by little. It was the spaceship driven by Li Ming. This is Fish Planet. As the spaceship approached, the dark red planet became clearer. Most of the surface of the planet is hot magma, and there is little land to land on, so it looks dark red. The rolling magma keeps flowing. There is no violent eruption, but it keeps flowing like a river. Just looking at it from a distance, you can already feel the temperature of the magma. Looking at such a planet, Li Ming frowned and whispered, "Is this the headquarters of the Xianmu organization?" There was a questioning look on his face. In Li Ming's opinion, this extremely uninhabitable planet should not be used as a headquarters, but the information Li Ming got was here. Of course, another possibility is not ruled out, that is, the Xianmu organization chose this place to hide itself. Since you are here, let's go up and see what's going on. As he said this, Li Ming clicked on the operating table and confirmed the coordinates. Buzz after a sound, the spaceship went directly to Fish Planet. Li Ming did not use the ability to teleport, but directly flew the spaceship into the planet. A piece of black land became Li Ming's target. The land was completely dark and surrounded by magma, like an isolated island in the middle of the sea. Even on this piece of land, there were many cracks, with red light flashing in the cracks and flames and magma flowing slowly. The spaceship stopped by itself, after stopping at a height of several dozen meters. Then a blue light flashed, and Li Ming fell on a huge rock like a beam of light. His eyes turned around, and after looking at the surrounding terrain, his brows slightly frowned, and he whispered, "It seems that here. Are you a new member?" A faint light flashed not far away, and an alien actually walked out of a rock. Li Ming quickly turned sideways, and looked at the alien up and down. The alien was more than 2 meters tall, with a tail covered with scales under his purple clothes, a human-like upper body, dark red skin, and 2 deer horns on his head. The rock behind this person was a rock with teleportation ability, so Li Ming did not notice when the other party walked out of it. This person is of level 2.3 civilization, named Jill, and comes from the Marcellus Galaxy group, which is exactly the level 2 civilization world that Li Ming is looking for. Under his wise eyes, this information emerged little by little, which made Li Ming very interested in it. As he watched, more information continued to emerge, but Li Ming remained calm and slowly replied, "I'm not a new member, but I'm still interested in your world." As soon as these words came out, Jill's face changed immediately. He looked at Li Ming intently, and looked Li Ming up and down. "Aren't you from the Xianmu organization?" Jill suddenly asked again. Li Ming shook his head slightly, smiled faintly, and replied, "I have no interest in this organization, but I'm still very interested in the Marcellus Galaxy cluster." Upon hearing this, Jill's eyes widened a few times, and he looked at Li Ming coldly. After a few seconds, his expression suddenly tensed, and he said in a stern voice, "Are you a spiritual civilization?" Li Ming nodded slightly, and continued, "The direct superior of the Xianmu organization, Jill, is from the Marcellus Galaxy cluster, Dulang civilization, the ultimate controller of this supercluster." After this information came out, Jill's face instantly became ugly, as if Li Ming had told a big secret. His brows twitched slightly, and he slowly raised his right hand and said, "If this kind of secret is spoken casually, the consequences will be very serious." Li Ming still didn't care, and continued, "As the controller of other galaxy clusters of the Dulang civilization, do you choose to recognize me and let me join your world, or?" At the end, Li Ming's expression changed, his eyes showed a fierce look, and a murderous intent was also revealed in his eyes. It was obviously unreasonable for a new member of the second level civilization to be so ferocious and murderous to a member of the first interval of the second level civilization. Similarly, this also completely angered Jill. Looking at Li Ming coldly, he paced on the ground and continued, "It's not that easy to join the world of Dulang civilization. Even if the Xianmu organization and the DI organization want to join, they have to go through a strict review. You are a newly promoted second level civilization. Are you too confident?" Li Ming smiled lightly and said, "Of course, this confidence comes from my own strength. The 2 organizations you control are indeed too weak." As he spoke, Li Ming shook his head lightly. Jill's eyes turned, as if he was thinking about something. While thinking, Jill's brain flickered, and some barriers appeared on the periphery of his head. These barriers are different from the barriers of the past, just like a transparent shield wrapping the head. The role of this is naturally to resist the invasion of spiritual civilization. Jill's defense is effective against ordinary spiritual civilization, but he doesn't know that Li Ming is a man with wisdom eyes, and this defense is like a virtual thing in front of wisdom eyes. Looking at Li Ming, Jill said again, it's okay to want to join the Dulang civilization, but if foreigners join our civilization, they must make certain contributions. Otherwise, even if I agree, it's useless. Even if you have some means, I'm afraid it will be difficult to gain a foothold in the Dulang civilization. Jill continued. The meaning of these words is consistent with what he thought in his mind. Jill's heart is extremely repulsive to Li Ming, and the consciousness shield obviously can't hide his thoughts. However, Li Ming naturally understands the contribution of joining the Dulang civilization. The most important thing is that there are so many masters in the second level civilization world, and there must be a second interval or even a third interval. If Li Ming wants to integrate into it, he must naturally follow the rules. It is definitely not good to attract too much attention. Then what is the contribution you are talking about? Li Ming calmed down and asked. Li Ming's question made Jill smile slightly, and then he laughed and said, now there is a good opportunity. If you can do it, I will help you enter the world of Dulang civilization. Li Ming was excited and became interested. In the prison of the Orc civilization, there is a man named Dempsey. If you can rescue him, it will be your most outstanding contribution and you will definitely be able to join the Dulang civilization. Jill said. Li Ming paused and frowned slightly. He did not respond to the other party immediately, but fell into deep thought. Jill then laughed and said, if you can't do it, don't force it. It's best to give up the idea of entering the Dulang civilization, because this is the only way. Li Ming was still thinking, and his eyes occasionally looked at the other party. The information obtained from the other party's brain showed that the difficulty of this task was self-evident, but if Li Ming could really do it, this person would consider including Li Ming in the Dulang civilization. Li Ming naturally had to think carefully about this. In the higher civilization world of the universe, if Li Ming did not rely on a higher civilization race, he would naturally fall into the situation of alienation. Even if he had some means, he would not be able to resist an entire higher civilization system. The unknown is fear, and Li Ming needed to think carefully. After some thought, Li Ming nodded gently and replied, okay, I accept this task. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 574, Level That Should Not Appear. Hearing Li Ming's agreement, Jill smiled proudly again, turned his right hand, took out a metal ball, and threw it to Li Ming, saying, this thing will help you in your actions. Li Ming raised his hand to take the thing, just took a quick look, and put it away. He glanced at the other party and said seriously, since it has been decided, just wait for my news. As he said so, Li Ming moved, and turned into a blue light, and entered the spaceship above his head. The spaceship started, and quickly left Fish Star. Li Ming's spaceship had just left, and another spaceship had quietly landed. This spaceship was not big, and its appearance was strange, like a fork. It came to the sky above this land skillfully with just a flash. As soon as he saw the appearance of this spaceship, Jill immediately snorted and showed dissatisfaction. I saw a blue light flashing under the spaceship, and a beam of light shot down, and then 3 figures appeared on the land. The 3 people were Nur, Cannonbone and Abercrombie, but Abercrombie standing in the middle was tightly tied up with chains. Lord Jill, Paogu and Nuaya came forward and saluted. Jill glanced at them disdainfully, and said in a cold voice, as the leaders of 2 organizations, your ability to handle things really worries me. When these words came out, Paogu and Nuaya were stunned, with horror on their faces. The 2 looked at each other, and dared not say anything. Jill looked at the 2 coldly and said, it's just a small problem, and I have to deal with it myself. Fortunately, the problem has been solved by me. Paogu was startled, raised his head with wide eyes, stared at Jill blankly, hesitated for a while, and then stammered, solved. Jill nodded slightly and said, just now, the tricky guy you mentioned came here. Li Ming? Li Ming came to Fish Star? Paogu was shocked again. Jill was calm and nodded slightly. Cannonbone then checked the surrounding environment and continued, did Lord Jill kill him? Jill shook his head slightly, sighed, and said, I don't need to do it myself for this kind of person. he will go to his death. Regarding the orcs, I will communicate with the headquarters of the Centaurus cluster. You just need to maintain the order of our supercluster. Cannonbone and Nuire nodded quickly, bowed their heads and replied, yes. Jill's eyes then shifted to Abercrombie and said, I will take this man back to the Dulang civilization headquarters. After all, there is still a lot of information in his brain. As he said this, a sinister smile appeared at the corner of his mouth again. Cannonbone and Nuire just bowed their heads slightly and dared not say much. At this moment, Li Ming was driving the spaceship to another place, the Centaurus cluster. The Centaurus cluster belongs to the Hydra Centaurus supercluster. The local group and the Virgo cluster belong to the local supercluster. They are completely two different galaxy groups. The scale of superclusters is larger than that of galaxy clusters. Galaxy clusters and galaxy groups are of the same level, but the difference is that there are fewer large galaxies in galaxy groups than in galaxy clusters. Li Ming is naturally clear about these cognitions, but this is only a classification of celestial bodies by type. There is also a level of civilization division, that is, between advanced civilizations and low-level civilizations. Just like Jill, whom Li Ming just met, he is in the world of secondary civilization and controls the entire supercluster of galaxies. Just like the Milky Way system that Li Ming encountered at the beginning, other civilizations are not allowed to enter at will. Advanced civilizations control more resources and have more ways to obtain energy, but these things will not be shared with more people. It is naturally extremely important to control the entry of low-level civilizations. With these cognitions, Li Ming must enter the world of advanced civilizations peacefully, so that the road to advancement in the future will be smoother. Before Li Ming set out, Jill gave Li Ming a metal ball, which contained a lot of information, including the Lapnum galaxy. This large galaxy is one of the main large galaxies in the Centaurus cluster, and the headquarters of the Orc civilization is located on the big star of this large galaxy. With the information he had, Li Ming controlled the spaceship and headed straight for the target. Li Ming naturally had his own plan for agreeing to this request. As long as it was not a world of level 2 civilization, Li Ming's combat power would rarely encounter opponents, so he didn't care too much. After time and space transmission, Li Ming drove the spaceship to a new starfield. Li Ming had the aerospace map here, which came from the metal ball given by Jill. As for where the prison was, Li Ming didn't know. If he wanted to rescue the guy named Dempsey that Jill mentioned, Li Ming needed to find the location of the prison where he was imprisoned. Thinking of this, Li Ming immediately locked onto the big star and said to himself, with my strength, there should be no opponent for me on this planet. Li Ming showed a proud look on his face. After all, Abercrombie of level 2.3 was not Li Ming's opponent. Coming to the space of Big Star, Li Ming looked at the operating table intently. There was no information about the star system of Big Star on it. Even if Li Ming obtained the metal ball, there was no detailed information about this planet. After receiving so much information, Li Ming frowned slightly and thought to himself, if there is no information. As he was thinking, a message suddenly came in. Message, please verify your identity information. Li Ming raised his hand and entered a message to enter. Message, identity verification is correct, entry is allowed. Li Ming then raised his hand and the spaceship began to transmit. The identity information Li Ming used was Isabel's identity information, but the information Li Ming obtained from Isabel was limited. After a buzzing sound, the spaceship disappeared in space, and when the spaceship appeared, it was already above a piece of land. The ground was a huge lake, more than 100 kilometers long and wide, with no end in sight, and in the center of the lake was an island, which was like a giant pebble, with a bare surface. It was gray. It looked extremely hard. The entire island was more than 10 kilometers long and wide, like a smooth and flat land. Although Isabel's information was used to come here, Li Ming was not very clear about the details related to this place, just like coming to a completely unfamiliar place. Standing in front of the operating table, Li Ming carefully looked at the surrounding environment. There were no buildings or aliens. Everything was unusually calm, which made Li Ming a little confused. This coordinate point was provided by the ground, and it was naturally related to Isabel's identity. Li Ming did not obtain all of Isabel's consciousness, so he didn't know much about it, but since he was here, he naturally had to go down to see what was going on. A blue light flashed at the bottom of the spacecraft. A beam of light shot down, and Li Ming's figure appeared on the huge rock. The bare rock was so calm, just like the surrounding lake surface, without any waves. But just as Li Ming looked around, a grey pattern suddenly appeared not far in front of him. The pattern suddenly appeared in the air more than 1 meter above the ground, and then slowly spread. The original small pattern suddenly turned into a huge shell. This shell turned directly from nothingness into a solid entity, and Li Ming's ordinary wisdom eyes and mental abilities could not detect it. This was extremely strange. Wisdom eyes and mental consciousness can perceive and discover any hidden objects, but this one in front of him was obviously an accident. He looked at the shell with a hint of strange color. After a few seconds, Baker slowly opened it. The inside was surrounded by fog and he couldn't see things clearly, but a strong energy aura had spread from it. Sensing the energy aura, Li Ming's expression immediately tightened, and he showed a cautious look. A red alien crawled out of the fog. It was Fidelia. The whole body was red, and the surface was smooth and transparent mucus. There was no clothes or armor on the body. Although only the upper body was exposed, the soft and well-proportioned figure was graceful and extremely beautiful. When the eyes saw Li Ming, they immediately widened a little, showing an incredible look, and the expression was also very surprised. "It's not iceable, it's you." As if seeing some treasure, his expression suddenly changed. Li Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, and his expression suddenly tightened. His wisdom eyes could not see the other party's consciousness and thinking, but he could clearly sense the aura of the other party's 2.4 level civilization. Level 2.4, the existence of the second interval of the second level civilization. That is extraordinary. Li Ming became cautious and thought to himself with a worried look on his face, it shouldn't be. The Centaurus cluster should be at the same level as the Virgo cluster. How can there be a civilization in the second interval? Chapter 575, Carelessness, Becoming the Source. Li Ming looked puzzled, even a little worried. If there were many second zones in this place, then what was the point of saving people here? It would be good enough if he could protect himself. "It seems that you are the top quality gene," that Justina said. TSK. It's really something that you can't find even with a lantern, but you delivered it to my door. Ha 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 ha. A strange voice came from Fidelia's mouth, and her eyes glowed threateningly, looking at Li Ming, as if she saw a rare treasure. Li Ming looked at her coldly, and looked around. Apart from this person, he didn't find anyone else. He thought to himself, it seems that forcing it won't work. Let's leave here first. Thinking of this, Li Ming moved and prepared to fly away. His feet left the ground, and his body just flew into the air. Before he flew far, he felt his body tightened, as if he was bound by something. There was no object around his body, but his body seemed to be entangled by a soft thing, unable to move at all. More importantly, the object entangled Li Ming actually had the function of suppressing energy. Something seems to be wrong. Li Ming whispered. In Li Ming's cognition, everything in the universe is mutually reinforcing and mutually restraining. Among them, there are many minerals or other materials that suppress energy. These things will be collected by advanced civilizations and transformed into weapons. Being bound by such things, the energy in the body will be suppressed and cannot be used in large quantities or even completely. Different things have different effects. Most of the chain cages are basically transformed from these suppressive items. Although you can't see what is binding you, one thing is clear. The object that binds Li Ming has a strong energy suppression effect. It's really a pie in the sky, a delicacy delivered to your door. Since you are here, how can you escape? Hehe. The strange voice came again, and Fidelia stretched out her palm to Li Ming. But a barrier sounded, and the red ring ripples spread out to the surroundings with Li Ming as the center. As the red ripples spread, the object that bound Li Ming also appeared. What was wrapped around Li Ming was a red object as thick as an arm. It was soft, with a smooth mucus on the surface, and the whole thing was blood red. I don't know what it was. As the red ripples spread, a huge object had appeared. Around Li Ming's body, there were actually several such smooth tentacles swinging, like tongues, and transparent liquid kept sliding down from them. Deep inside these tentacles was a huge soft tissue. Li Ming looked up and saw that he was in a huge shell, but the soft tissue inside this shell was all red. The open shell was like an open mouth. firmly fixing Li Ming inside. This object was the same as the Fidelia shell that Li Ming had seen before. They were both in invisible state, and the wise eyes could not directly detect them. At this moment, it was too late for Li Ming to resist. The energy in his body could not be used at all, as if his soul was firmly bound. Damn it, I underestimated the enemy, Li Ming whispered regretfully. Although the civilization levels were very different, Li Ming still had many tricks that he hadn't shown yet. He was in such a situation because he underestimated the other party. The orc civilization was obviously more terrifying than Li Ming had imagined. Looking at Li Ming, who had been completely controlled, Fidelia smiled viciously and whispered, "Okay, I can report to Lord Nicole now. I thought I would have to go to the supercluster and spend some time there, but I didn't expect it would be so easy and smooth." As she spoke, Fidelia's palm suddenly clenched slowly. As her palm moved, the huge shell where Li Ming was actually slowly closed. As it closed, red smoke continued to be released from the inside of the shell. Li Ming, who couldn't use energy, felt dizzy and his consciousness gradually blurred. As soon as he touched the red smoke, the shell closed little by little, and the blurred vision gradually turned into darkness, as if entering the night, and the brain gradually entered silence, as if falling asleep. As soon as the huge red shell closed, it returned to the invisible state, and disappeared on the spot. Fidelia's figure also shrank slightly at this time. After returning to her shell, she also turned into nothingness and disappeared. A moment later, in a huge underground base, in a separate giant room, Nicole was concentrating on a square phantom matrix in front of her. This space was extremely huge. Above her head was the space part of the room, and she could not see the roof. The square phantom matrix was located in the center of the room, and there were only 3 paths around it leading to the edge of the room. Under her feet was a void, like an abyss. Nicole was at the bottom edge of the square matrix, which was a round table. She looked around and saw a shell gradually emerging on the flat ground. The shell slowly opened, and Fidelia's red body crawled out of it. Such an unexpected surprise. How does Lord Nicole plan to deal with it? Fidelia said. Nicole also smiled and said, "This sudden surprise is obviously God's will. If the synthesis is successful, then our orc civilization will rise immediately." Fidelia smiled slightly when she heard this. Nicole smiled slightly, looked at the square matrix in front of him, and said, "We have been looking for this kind of life form. Only such life forms are worthy of its genes." While speaking, in the originally blank virtual matrix, a virtual beast suddenly appeared with a bang. The beast opened its eyes wide and stuck to the edge of the matrix, just like sticking to a blurry glass, and its ferocious face could be vaguely seen. In the universe, the only gene that surpasses the star beasts, the mythical beast Killin. Strengthen our race. Ha ha ha. Excited laughter resounded throughout the space, and Nicole's eyes widened a little. At this moment, right below the matrix, there was a pipe from thick to thin, like a needle, extending to the bottom of the darkness. Right below the needle was Li Ming, but at this time, Li Ming had been bound by layers of iron chains, and lay on the disc. He couldn't move at all. Although Li Ming was awake at this time, he couldn't use the energy in his body. He looked around, and it was dark all around. Only the square matrix above his head was slightly bright, and next to the matrix, there were 2 figures. Li Ming wanted to struggle hard, but his body was completely uncontrollable, and he couldn't move at all. Nicole, who was next to the matrix, sank his head slightly, looked at Li Ming below through the gap between the matrix and the disc, then snorted and said, "I can't wait to see our glorious moment. Let's get started." As soon as the voice fell, the beast's shadow in the matrix suddenly let out a dull roar. No specific sound could be heard, but the breath of the beast's horrible struggle could be clearly sensed. The entire beast's shadow shrank little by little under the suppression of the matrix energy, as if it was condensed. This condensation and shrinkage seemed extremely painful. The beast kept struggling, but facing the powerful force of the matrix, its struggle was obviously unnecessary. The beast's shadow began to deform, and the virtual body kept twisting and shrinking, and finally turned into a spherical luminous body. The sphere was crystal clear, and the breath of energy kept scattering. After pausing in the matrix for a few seconds, it began to slowly enter a hole, which was the pipe leading to the bottom. The top of the pipe was like a needle tip, and it suddenly grew and extended. With a soft sound of puff, the needle pierced Li Ming's abdomen directly, and blood immediately flowed out of the wound. The red blood soaked the clothes around the wound, and then flowed little by little on the disc where Li Ming was lying. The light bowl condensed by the beast shadow approached Li Ming little by little along the pipe. The metal pipe seemed transparent at this moment. The light flashed under the powerful energy of the beast shadow. Even from the outside, the trajectory of the bull moving downward could be clearly seen. Li Ming's face was full of fear at this moment. His eyes were wide open, and his expression was extremely ugly. His eyes could clearly see a luminous body approaching his body along the pipe. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.